Good morning. Hello to my favorite people. Good morning. Listen how much better I sound. You can actually hear my voice. I'm so glad to see y'all. Thank you so much. I am feeling a lot better today. My fever broke yesterday. When I got off stream, I went and laid down and I kind of dozed in and out. I was watching the hearing and I had put it on RA's channel where I portaled all of y'all over to, and I put it on that and then laid down. And I mean, I went out. I dozed in and out most of the day, and then I woke up and I was drenched in sweat, and it wasn't even because of the heat. My fever broke, and I am so excited. I felt like a whole new woman. So very, very glad to have, you know, gotten it over with before the trial starts. Oh no, Angie, you got sick. I passed it on to you through the internets. I am glad to see y'all though. I'm glad to be back. I did I did watch. I don't know, I went ahead and started. I know that there's still stuff going on with with the trial and the jury selection and all that, but I wanted to do this. For those of y'all who didn't watch the hearing yesterday, you missed out. It was a doozy, and it just kind of goes to show what's going to be what all's going to be involved in this trial. It's going to be a wild one. So I I know that some of y'all, I redirected y'all to Recovery Addict yesterday. Oh my gosh, yes, Jams. This is Lucy Cam. This is something we launched last week. We had gone, for those of y'all, some of y'all were with us when this happened, but there was one day that we ended early, and we ended up taking a field trip to the zoo. We were going on all these different cams, which, by the way, that reminds me, let me show you what I got in like a little gift package that I am obsessed with. We ended up watching all these live cams, and the panda, oh my gosh, this little panda fell, and I became obsessed, and we had to rewind it and watch it again. So cute. But I got this little keychain with the panda. I don't know if you can see it, and it says, maybe it's easier to do it on this one. Here, let me see. There you go. Lucy's like, why are you on my camera? And then it says, I don't know if you can see it. I just freaking love pandas. Okay. Isn't that cute? And then I got the little pocket panda. So super, super cute. This is great having Lucy Cam under the desk. It's so much easier for me to show stuff in that camera. So I love those. So we were watching the panda cam and, the different animals and stuff. And it was like we took our little field trip to the zoo. It was one of the most fun days ever. And so we were talking about it, and, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool that they do like these live cams. And so we started talking about it. And we decided, Lucy needs her own camera. She's just as cute as the pandas and everybody else. So that's how the whole idea came. And she's always laying, and I put her a little bed under my desk. So she's always laying down here anyway. So I hung her some little curtains, and we got her a little pink fur rug, which is funny because she's got a white fur rug over there in front of the window with her bed. So now she's just got like another little, like a little bougie version down here. So we started Lucy Cam, and I love it. And everybody, it's going to be great too when it gets to the difficult parts of trials, because, she's like, oh, my Netflix just turned on. She's like a little ray of sunshine. So she'll be everybody's emotional support during the tough parts. ML, happy anniversary. She said, oh, this is exciting. I am yellow. How exciting. I love it when they change. That's awesome. Happy anniversary. We are so glad to have you. Angie Barr, I wish that it was me who won the lottery, but I am sad to say it was not. But I wish. Oh my gosh, Dunkin' Bacon. Yes, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, that is 100% cousin Eddie. From yesterday, he reminded me so much of cousin Eddie. I was here for it. I loved it. It was amazing. He did awesome. Yes, JT and Lucy are besties now. The screenshots of them from last week where it really does look like she's looking right at him. And then there's this one where it looks like he's looking back at her too. There's a couple of them where it looks like she's looking, because there's one where they're right beside each other. Because I remove myself before I remove her because everybody wants to see her longer. So there's one where it looks like she's looking over directly at him. And then there's one where it's JT and I are on the top and Lucy's on the little bottom box, and it looks like she's looking right up at him. So JT and Lucy are besties now. They're planning on being co-hosts and just kicking me out. They've got each other now. So cute. So cute. Hello, Stephanie Willis. I am feeling better. I know that I still don't sound 100%, but I am feeling a lot better today. I just still sound a little bad. Does Lucy know she's famous? Lucy has been internet famous for a while. Oh, hold on. Sorry. This is my doctor. I have to take this. I know this. Sorry. Cancer doctor. I have to talk to them when they call. Okay. Does Lucy know she's famous? She has been internet famous since I got her because she was uh, famous on Facebook before anything else. Candace Hoff, thank you so much. Candace says, glad you were feeling better. You had us worried about you. Yeah, I was. I was. I was. I felt like crap, but y'all are the best. Y'all pushed me to go to bed, and I was so worried about getting off of here and letting everybody down. But y'all were the best, and everybody was telling me, no, go to bed. We will see you later. So I appreciate that. Yeah, that's when normally I can call back any of my doctors, but my cancer doctor is I have a new one now that I've moved here in Pensacola, and they're really hard to get in touch with. So when they call back, I have to stop whatever I'm doing and take it because I have in a couple weeks I have another checkup. Let's see. Yes, RA and I are both covering this case. This is the first time that we've both covered the same one. We've never done that before, but it's great because it gives y'all a lot of our people bounce back and forth anyway. So we have a lot of the same community. So then y'all can just bounce back and forth without missing a beat. Let's see. Sorry, I missed a lot while I was on the phone with them, so I'm trying to scroll back down and get caught up. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Y'all are the best. And I was able to get an appointment with my doctor tomorrow morning at my doctor here, not cancer doctor, my doctor tomorrow morning here at 8:00 my time. So I should be able to go see that just in case. So they can, because I feel better and my fever broke, but just in case. Better safe than sorry. It's hard because having gone through chemo and stuff, it makes it a little bit hard because I don't have the same immune system that I had before. I don't have much of an immune system at all, actually. So it helps to have a doctor just kind of look at it just in case. I was one of those that before I got sick, I never went to the doctor. Never. I mean, it would take a lot to get me into the doctor. And now I have to go see them for everything, which is annoying. All right. So before I forget, actually, let me get over here. Entire screen, share. Wait. Okay, here we go. Before I forget, we have our, oops, I got to save it. Well, come on, StreamYard. What is it? StreamYard. What is happening? I have to I have to do the little intro video like right away, or else I forget. And I actually did it today, and now it's not working. I'm really bad about remembering to do it, actually. Let's see. All right, there we go. Okay. Now I think I got it. First to the tailgate. Congratulations to our first in the tailgate. Thank you for getting in, getting the party going. Oh, I want to show y'all something too. So with this case, you know, this is one that is a little bit not difficult to follow, but kind of difficult to follow. Because there's a lot of people involved, a lot of wives involved. So I did something to help us out while they're doing this. I made an overlay for when they're talking about people. So I want to show y'all this. I put this is just from the yes, for those of y'all joining us, I know I still sound kind of bad, but I do feel a lot better. I promise I do. But I've got an appointment Friday morning just in case. What's today? Wednesday? Yeah. So I've got an appointment Friday morning just in case, but you know, just so they can check everything. But I know I still sound rough, but I do feel a lot better. So we have an identity change. Hello, Holly / Caper. I love identity changes. As long as y'all let me know that you've changed it, because then I get confused, because y'all know how I get confused. I need a chart on some of those sometimes. Okay, so I did an overlay so that when they're talking about things, we can keep up with who's what. So we have wife number 1 was Catherine, and you'll remember if you did the history lesson or whatever it was with me when we went over all of this stuff, you'll remember that she's the one that they went and talked to. She was wife number 1, was 18 when they got married. He was 20. When they got divorced, it was actually the day that his divorce was final with Catherine, he married Becky. He was cheating on Catherine with Becky. So the day that their marriage was or their divorce was final, he married Becky. But now you'll remember Catherine, they did an interview with her. She is now married to Steve, who was at one time a friend of Tom's. And Steve said that he had, you know, Tom had talked to him before about you know, what would he be willing to do for money? Would he kill somebody for money if he knew he could get away with it and all of that? So that was the beginning of the pattern, if you'll remember. And then, of course, we have Becky is the one he married on the day that his divorce was final with Catherine. So Becky's wife number 2. This is the one who was ruled a suicide in the beginning. I'm hitting my microphone. Was ruled a suicide in the beginning. And then it took about 2 years, and then they ended up charging him for her murder, and he was acquitted. But the information from the trial from her was brought in to the 2017 trial for wife number 6, Sharon, which is why they're doing another trial right now. So Becky was shot in the head, and they said it was a suicide. And he is, I'm not a fan of how he handles things anyway, but he said that in an interview, he said, Shireen gifted a membership. Thank you, Shireen. Thank you so much, Shireen. It went to Sherry Smith. Sherry Smith has been gifted a membership. Sherry Smith just said, oh man, I lost my green color. And now look at you, Sherry Smith, right back in green where you belong. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Shireen. I appreciate that. Y'all are the best. Y'all are the best. All right. So, so Becky, Becky's family, they were at the courthouse for the trial, and her mom is the one who out there on the sidewalk in front of the courthouse. After it was over, she was saying, she was disappointed that she knows he's guilty. And she said, he's going to just go kill somebody else's daughter. So beware. And man, if that's not eerie, I don't know what is. Oh, Diana just gifted 5 memberships. It's raining memberships in here. Let's see. Princess Lukey, Miss Beezy, Electronic Progression, Diet Coke Mama, and Hello Kitty were all gifted memberships by Dinah Doe 420. Thank you, Diana. I appreciate that so much. Welcome to the new members. Welcome. We're glad to have y'all. I love it. I love it when it rains memberships. It's like a little love fest in here. It's the best. All right, so let's see. The murder trial for Becky, when that was over, he got married. Oh, thank you, Shunk of Bacon, for some good egg drop soup. I love egg drop soup. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh, wait. Oh, no, I forgot to turn my dang things on again. This is what I get for being sick. Hold on. Maybe I can do it without having to restart my computer. Oops. Let's see. Soundboard. I don't know if I can or not. Oh, I guess not. Dang it. I always forget to do that. And then once I'm on here, then I can't. Okay, well, cha-ching. I'll do it myself. Cha-ching. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Y'all are so funny. I love it how y'all are all doing it with me. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. It doesn't sound as good when I'm still a little bit sick, but that's okay. Lisa Wilmot, you don't know what egg drop soup is? Oh, egg drop soup is so good. It's so good. So you don't have that in Wales? I love egg drop soup. All right, so oh, bless you. Did you sneeze? Did you sneeze? Did y'all see Lucy's pigtails today? Is she the cutest thing that you've ever seen in your whole entire life? Are you the cutest thing ever? Yeah. Down there with her little iPod. Bless Lucy. See, you're getting bless yous. You're getting bless yous. Y'all, I don't put those toys in her bed either. She'll go pick some of her toys and she'll put them in her bed with her. She's got like a little pile of them over here too. She's got her little bank card that was sent to her as a gift, and she's actually got her little Instagram one over here too. So she's got like Oh, and her purse. Let's see. See, y'all can't even see everything. She's like stockpiling her little toys down here, but she's got her little Chewy Vuitton. These are all gifts that she's been sent. Like she loves this stuff, and I'll buy her stuff. And actually, she doesn't have any of the stuff that I've bought her down there. It's all gifts from everybody else. There's another one stuck right here. Oh, she's got. You got all your little toys, all your little babies. Oh, spoiled, rotten thing. I love her. The only one that she's got down there that I got her is the gnome, and that's only because I put it there. Everything else is all her little gifts from everybody else. She's so funny. Thank you for the super sticker. Cha-ching. It sounds so bad. Hold on, let's try this again. Cha-ching. That one sounded better, didn't it? That one sounded a lot better. Thank you. Yeah, she's so funny. She's cha-ching. She does the same thing when we get ready to go to bed, and she has like these steps that lead up to the bed, and she'll go pick, like, she doesn't get one toy to come to bed. She'll go and get like 5, 6, 7 things. It's like, I have a king size bed, and it's just me and her and like 27 of her favorite toys. She's so funny, and she'll snuggle up with me and her toys. Oh, I love it. She's the best. She's so funny. I always get distracted when I talk about Lucy. Are we best friends? Give 5. Hey, wake up. Give 5. Your apples are for give 5. Are you giving me the cold shoulder? Give 5. Give 5. She's not having it. She's like ignoring me today. You got your toy, so you think you're too good? I'll remember that when it's treat time. I'll remember that. Cash register with a cold. That is what it sounds like, isn't it? She's when she's not sleeping and being a brat, I can tell her give me 5, and she'll give me 5, and I taught her. This is back before I even started doing this. This is how I watched too much true crime stuff and Dateline and stuff like that. I taught her. I have it on video somewhere, but I taught her. I was like, when you hear gunshots, you need to protect mama. So, and this all came because I was watching some kind of trial or Dateline or something, and me and my kid were. We were teaching our dogs tricks. So I taught her, when I go bang, bang, she'll come and stand right in front of me and like look like this, like she's protecting me. I have a video of it. I'll have to find it. It was hilarious. It's like she, she thinks she's tough, but she's a funny little thing. Thank you so much, Anna Kay, for super chat. Hope you're all better soon. Thank you. I know that I don't sound great, but I do feel better. Cha-ching. Thank you for all y'all doing it for me. Y'all are the best. Good morning. Better late than never. Hello. All right, see what happens. I get to talking about Lucy and I get all distracted. Okay, so the wives. All right, so we made it through. Hi, Marie Moss. Marie Moss says, am I counting anything? I don't know. We'll have to see what all. I'm wondering, like, if he's going to have outbursts. That would be something to count in this. We'll have to see. We'll kind of have to see how the day goes and see what starts happening. We have to put our favorite statistician to work. All right, so wife number 2, acquitted for the murder. All right, so then we go to wife number 3, Leona. Leona and Tom were only married for 11 months. And he had said in an interview, oh yeah, there you go. Samantha M said how many times he called hitmans, different hitman in every state, different hitman for every wife. Diana just gifted another membership, and it went to Rose Renee. Rose Renee, you're back in green. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Diana. I appreciate that. I love it. I love it. Sea of green. There you go, Nikki. We should count how many times he falls asleep. There you go. That could be a good one. Yeah, him, y'all, look, him talking to the judge about his medicine and, I need this and I need this and I need you to tell the doctor needs to come do this and all that. It was so on brand for Tom Randolph. It's ridiculous because that's exactly who he is. He's just all about, this is what I need. This is, I am the center of the universe. He even says, he said in multiple interviews that he knows he's a narcissist. Like, yeah, duh. Thank you, Holly McIntosh, for the super chat. I hope you feel all better soon. Thank you so much. Cha-ching. That one didn't come out as good. Cha-ching. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are very generous. I appreciate that. I'm feeling the love train today. I love it. Yeah, cha-ching. See, y'all got me covered when I can't do it. All right, so wife number 3, Leona. We don't know a whole lot about her, but he did say in an interview that she liked to party and would forget to come home. So, I feel like, and this is pure speculation, this is not based on anything factual, this is just me speculating. Got to throw that out there. I wonder if this divorce was because she was giving him a taste of his own medicine. Like he's always out cheating and partying and doing whatever, treating his wives like crap. And I wonder if she was giving him a taste of his own medicine and he didn't like it and he got out of that one quick. Indy Cindy, welcome to the jury pool. Welcome. We are glad to have you. Welcome to the family. You look good in green. We are glad to have you. Cash register choking on all the cash. That's exactly what it was. Exactly. It's so funny. Jennifer, thank you for the super chat. Jennifer, did you see the little? See how cute. Oops, sorry, Luce. I just kind of threw it right on her. Sorry, Luce. My bad. She didn't seem to mind. She's got like her little paw over everything. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. Yeah, she's just asleep and she ain't worried about nothing. She'll wake up from a nap too. It's funny too, because now when she wakes up and she goes hunting for a flip-flop, now there's Lucy Cam. So now y'all can see it when she does it. And she's so funny. Let's see here. I think, oops. I almost messed that up. Alrighty, so first wife is still alive. But she got married to Steve not long after, not long after her divorce, and they were still, as of, I mean, I haven't checked in the last couple years, but as of, just a couple years ago, her and Steve were still married. Um, they've been married um, since whatever that was in early 80s, 70, late 70s, early 80s, whatever it was. Um, so she is, she got out. She was doing well. Thank goodness she got out of there. For our baby's mom, thank you so much for the super sticker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Cha-ching. I've got to remember to do my buttons before I log on next time. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Y'all are the best. Yeah. Chrissy Bacon says first wife is also mother of the children. Yeah, she's Krista and Justice are their two kids, and she is their mom. So but she got lucky, to get out of there. It's a shame too, because the way that he talks about her, about Catherine, I mean, he's a pig. I don't mind saying it. He is a pig. The way that he speaks about these women is disgusting. And the things that he has said about Catherine are disgusting. And to say them publicly, and that's the mother of his children. So for his children to hear the things that he says about Catherine, he's a pig, and I don't mind saying it. Lucy is a Yorkie poo. She is half Yorkie and half miniature poodle, and all diva. Yeah, she's a little cutie. She looks more Yorkie than poodle, but she has that her fur is like really, really thick. She gets that from the poodle, but she looks more Yorkie, but just has that thick fur from the poodle. But she's a cutie. Shereen says a Yorkie just like me. See, there you go. All right, so let's see. So divorce number 3. He divorced Leona. About 10 years later, she died from cancer. Thank goodness she got away from him, because she might not have been able to have those last 10 years. Then we have this. Let's see. How do I? This one. Wife number 4 is Gaina. Now, Gaina, they also got divorced. Gaina is, she was interviewed, and she talked about their marriage and stuff. They got married. They met on from a personals ad in the newspaper, started dating. She started seeing his, darker side, like the, way he was acting, and how the honeymoon didn't last, I guess you could say. He got into a bar fight, which turned into there was shooting involved. There were some people that got injured. He got arrested. So then the police called her and were talking to her about him. She didn't know anything about the trial in Utah for her murder, for Becky's murder. Didn't know anything about that. Didn't know about his past. So Oh, thank you for buying me coffee. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. It'll help with my throat right now. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Um, so um so anyway, Gaina said that she didn't know about any of that stuff that was going on, and she said that it kind of obviously was like red flags, alert to her, and she said that she was sitting at the table um one day, and he was cleaning his gun, and the gun went off, and she said she was sitting pretty close to him. Now, if you'll remember, when she's telling them this, but if you'll remember when the one of the hitman friends that he had talked to had told investigators. And now keep in mind, Gaina didn't know this at the time. Gaina's telling this, and she doesn't even know that this was a thing. But the hitman had said that one of the ways that he had talked about possibly, um, killing his wife for financial gain at the time was to, accidentally shoot her, have an accidental shooting. So that's one of the ways that he said, he was planning on getting rid of her, and he had gotten life insurance already on Gaina, and then that happened. So I would not be surprised if that was, his, if he just messed it up and he meant to kill her that day. But she said it was, not long after that she was like, this is too much. And when he left for work, she packed up and left. So she got out of Dodge. She got lucky. Then he met wife number 5, Frances. Frances is the one who had a heart condition. Her family said that, she obviously had the surgeries that she could have, but she didn't need it. She wasn't like dying of heart condition. It's something that she lived with. But according to them, he talked her into getting it, and she was in the hospital recovering. Daughter said that she had been doing fine. That was, she had been recovering for a couple days and was up talking, and that she left the room, and that he had asked her to leave the room. This is coming from Frances's daughter. He had said, give me a minute with your mom. And so she left the room, and she said about 45 minutes later, she was dead. She believes that, it was foul play because she had been doing well before that. So that was number 5. And then of course, number 6 is the one that we are on trial for. Not we, he, the one we are watching that he is on trial for now. This one, it happened in 2008, but in 2017 was the trial. But it happened in May of 2008, and he came home, him and Sharon came home. One of the things that they went over in the hearing, not the one yesterday, but the one the day before, one of the things that they went over in the hearing was whether or not they were going to let that walkthrough video in. Now, I had shown on the history lesson thing that we did, the introduction to all of this, I had shown parts of it. But I didn't show all of it. There are a couple reasons that defense wanted this kept out. Number one, this is a huge piece of evidence that was used in the first trial. But number one, he contradicts himself a lot. The things that he says in the video and how he's describing that things happened they don't line up with forensics. And there are also things that he says that don't that he like in the 911 call, he said stuff different than, like in the 911 call, he said he heard a shot. And then in the video, he said, that he didn't hear anything. He can't hear out of, like, he has a hearing aid or whatever. So he contradicts himself. The way that he describes things, as far as like the inconsistencies with the mask. And, he said that Mike Miller had the mask on, so he didn't know it was him. And then he said, during the scruffle, that the mask came up some, and then he knew. And so that part kind of goes back and forth. It's very ambiguous how he says different things, because you can't really pinpoint any specific part, because it changes and it doesn't really make sense. But another thing that is in that video, when he's describing what happened, the vulgar things that he says about his wife, who has only been dead for 1 week at that point, the vulgar things that he says about her, I mean, it makes him sound like a sociopath. Like, for him to say the things that he said, a week after she passes, when you would think that he would still be mourning, the loss of her, and that he would still be, in pain and that type thing. He says some vulgar stuff about her. And his wording, is disgusting. He's, like I said, he's a pig. So, they don't want it in for that reason either. They don't, this video shows not only that he's inconsistent, but also his lack of emotion for her being dead. He's not a grieving husband. He's not sad. He talks about these women like they're just, they're nothing more than, sexual conquest to him. And it's disgusting. I don't like this guy at all. Not a fan. Not a fan. But it's a little bit scary, kind of, because it's easy to look at all of the information that we have on him and his patterns, which are, like, at this point have become textbook for him. Find a woman, marry her quickly, get insurance, life insurance on her, multiple policies, make yourself the beneficiary, and then try to hire a hitman. Other than the, Frances, who, with her, it wasn't, well, we won't hear Cousin Eddie lookalike, won't be testifying. We won't have, without having the prior bad acts, it's going to be a tougher road for the prosecution this time, because it's easy for us to say, look how many times he's done this. Like, look at all these wives. Like, look how many times he's done this. But if you don't have all of that information and you're only going by what we have from wife number 6, he learned from, from Becky's trial, where, he had Tarantino testify against him. He learned that from that trial. So this time, instead of leaving somebody to testify, he killed Mike Miller. So now he doesn't have anybody to testify against him. So, the stuff where we heard about him, about Mike Miller telling his friend Judy that, Tom had approached him and wanted him to kill his wife. That is not admissible because it's hearsay. So the jury won't be able to hear that. They won't be able to hear the previous, the prior bad acts. So it's going to be, it's going to be, it's actually going to be really interesting to see, because I think the biggest piece of evidence that they have is going to be the 911 call and that walkthrough video, which is why, they wanted the walkthrough video left out. I'll say this, if the walkthrough video, if they had ruled to leave that out, it would have been a uphill battle, I think, but the 911 call and, having the walkthrough video is going to, really help, um, show what kind of piece of work this guy is. Um, Now, the judge also ruled yesterday. um, I could do it too. Y'all, if I was a prosecutor or a defense attorney, I'd show up with my charts. I'd be like, let me break it down for y'all. Like, sit down. We're going to look at a church world chart. Let me break it down for y'all. I could do it too. Um, so, so, um, I watched, yesterday, and I kept falling asleep because I was dozing in and out. So I would fall asleep and then I'd wake up and rewind. But, the judge, in a death penalty case, there are, it's because this was a death penalty case, and he was sentenced to death. The jury selection for that is a lot different. And they, yesterday, the judge had told him, we're not doing a death penalty qualified jury for this. So the jury is here to only decide, guilty, not guilty. And then the judge is going to decide the sentence. So that'll be really interesting too. Um, but it's, I had read, and I haven't read the most. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I was about to say. It's hard to get someone his age to be given death penalty due to his age. And I had read, going back and forth in court documents and stuff. I remember reading that they had said that they weren't going to seek death penalty because of his age this time. Uh, but with the judge, um, now they're not doing the death penalty jury and all of that. So it's the judge. So I haven't pulled the most recent stuff. I'd planned on finishing pulling all the court docs and everything, like, the last couple days, but I spent most of my time in bed. So that didn't happen. but, we'll get it pulled. The Karma will get him in for sure. You know what sucks? He's it's not even one of those where I'm like, how do I even say this? He's a pig. He's a pig. Like, the way that he speaks about these women is just disgusting. And it frustrates me because, like, even when they are talking about, in one of the interviews that I watched, they're talking to him about, and this was, I think, a couple years ago, but they're talking to him about death penalty and, what happens if he, like, what are you going to do if they give you death penalty or whatever? This is like a phone interview. And he's, asking or they're asking him what he's going to do. And he's like, he even makes a comment about how, well, if I get death penalty, it'll be fine because, I'll just be up in heaven having sex with all of my wives. Like, gross, dude. Like, these, the way that that shows you, that answer right there sums up exactly who he is as a person. And he's gross. I don't like him. That's true. Don't insult pigs. Bacon comes from pigs, so pigs are, and pigs are really cute too. Pigs are really cute. So that's not a good word for him. Pigs are too cute and he's not cute. He's more of a, I don't even know what to call him. He's just gross. He's gross. He's disrespectful. He's a narcissist. He doesn't care about his complete lack of empathy for other people is concerning. Um, the way that all of his wives and the families of his wives and the attorneys that he's had have all talked about how controlling he is and how, he just, thinks that he's running everything. And, um, and we even saw that in the court when he's telling the judge everything he needs for his medicine. And as she's trying to respond, he interrupts her. Have you ever seen a defendant like that? Well, I mean, Daryl Brooks, I guess, but I mean, you don't see a lot of, he don't know when to shut up. And that's something his attorneys have said too, actually, come to think of it, that he does not know when to shut up. Not a fan. Not a fan. I I am always very like, hey, let's go into this, with open mind. But this one, he's been through this trial, so we already know the facts. And I, I fully believe he's guilty. I can't say that I believe he, I have a hunch about Frances, wife number 5, but I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt with that one because obviously I haven't seen enough information on that one. But I mean, it fits his profile. But I mean, as far as this case goes, I hope he goes right back to, another. I hope we get another guilty verdict. So he's just, ugh. Yeah, Frances was the weird hospital death. And, hearing Frances's daughter talk about it, and her sisters, talk about it, it doesn't seem like it adds up. For her to, it would be different if she had been, on her deathbed and, whatever, but that's not, from what everybody said, that's not at all how it was. So, just, he's just a bleh, bleh. In the, Kathy said, new side hustle alert. These prosecutors should definitely hire you. I could do it. I could. Let's see. Did they ever do any autopsies on any of the wives? Well, on Frances, she would be the one that needed it the most. And he denied an autopsy and had her cremated. So then they couldn't do it. And then he turned around and sued the hospital for her death and got money from that too. Yes, it is a West Coast trial. It's in Las Vegas. So I'm not a fan. Not a fan. The second death, the second wife, her death was ruled suicide in the beginning, of course, but then that's the one that he went through trial for. I would love to know, because he was acquitted on that. I would love to know what the jury heard and what they were allowed to hear on that one. And it makes me wonder, like, I cannot get Becky's mom's, words out of my head when she was out there after the verdict and she said, he's just going to kill somebody else's daughter. And I'm curious about how things could have been different if, he had been convicted in that. Yeah, yeah, he sued the police department. He two police departments, Clearfield and Ogden. Um, and yeah, for after his acquittal, and he made money from that too. So they ended up settling with him to just get rid of him, make the lawsuits go away, and they settled with him, and he got money from that too. So not only do I firmly believe that he killed his second wife, but he made money from her life insurance and made money from being tried for it. And I can tell y'all right now, if please Lord don't let this happen, but if he gets off this time, he will turn around and do the same thing. He will start suing, trying to get money. Because at this point, it's going to be really hard for him to get married and kill another one. So he's going to have to get money somewhere. And I if by some fluke he walks on this, he will turn around and he will sue everybody. Mark my words, he will sue everybody. He is. You know what? Wilma says he's so money hungry. I would be scared to be his mother. You know what's sad too? His mom. I feel really bad for her because she seems like, she wants to support him and stuff, obviously, like she's his mom, but it's sad because she seems like just the sweetest thing in the world. And I hate that, when she found out that he was getting a new trial, she was so excited, and she was like, he might be coming home. I guess she believes that he's innocent, but I guess a mama would, maybe a mom would want to believe it. I don't know, but do we know what jobs he's had other than cashing in on death? A little bit of everything. So he's kind of a weird dude when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, he's done some handyman stuff. He was a foreman at a cabinet shop. He worked for an attorney's office for a while. Like, he wanted to be an attorney, but he did that for a while. He had said, he told one of his wives, I think it was Sharon, actually, that he was a special education teacher, but he was out of work. But I was not able to find anything about whether he was actually a special education teacher or not. But I don't know if that was just something he told her. But he's done a bunch of like handyman stuff, but he's also worked for attorneys' offices and stuff like that. So he's done like a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything and a whole lot of nothing. So it seems like he'll work for a while and then, live off of dead wives' insurance money for a while. This guy. Yeah. Many sociopaths are very charming and often charismatic. So that is probably the attraction. That's one thing, like, they know how to be manipulative, and seeing yes, he has also sold drugs. He wanted to be called Tony Montana for a while. He sold drugs, which is funny because now he said that him telling the judge, like, oh, I don't do drugs, but also I need to take this break and this break and this break for my for my medicine. But yeah, he was a drug dealer too. But this guy. But guys like him are good at seeing. He's so talented at his manipulation. Guys like him can see, pick their victims. A lot of, you get a woman who's like too trusting, too caring, wants to be loved. Especially ones that have come out of, bad relationships or bad marriages, and like, are just like, thirsty for like that sweep you off your feet kind of love, and he can fake that, um, and make them think like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for forever. And then once he gets it locked in, then he doesn't have to behave anymore. Then he can just do whatever he wants. Piece of crap. And I can go ahead and tell y'all, I am not going to be, this is not one of those cases where we'll be like, hey, let's try to see it from both sides. No, I've seen enough from him. This is not his first rodeo, and I'm not a fan. He also wants it known that the methadone is for pain. Yeah. Yeah, Cousin Eddie said that he tried to warn Francis. I saw that part where, and to be clear, for those of you who didn't watch, he's not actually Cousin Eddie, but he just looks just like Cousin Eddie. But yeah, he wanted to warn Francis, and I ended up clipping that one part from him where he said, something about the little remark about his mother-in-law, that yeah, that was a trip. It sucks that they're not going to let him testify, because that would have been great. Yeah, they definitely know what they are looking for. Even with the, the attempts at the finding the hitman, it's the same pattern that he followed for those too. So it is not a stretch to believe he killed Becky. I believe he killed Becky based on everything that they said. I believe they did it. That he did it. Yeah, that was funny. Hello, those of y'all joining us. Hello. I see some people still kind of filing in a little bit late. Yeah, I wanted him to come in too. Ivan says, as someone with both prison and methadone experience, it's extremely rare to get it. They give it for long-term chronic pain, though, not just addiction. I think that I don't know. It's almost like him going on his little rant, not rant, I guess, his little monologue about his pain to the judge and stuff, though. It didn't seem like it was like, I don't know, it just didn't seem sincere. Because nothing about him is sincere. Nothing about him seems sincere. He just seems like he's, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. Not a fan. Hello, Michelle Johnson. I am feeling a lot better today. I am not, I am not 100% yet, but I feel a lot better today than I did yesterday. And I know I still sound kind of bad. I know that I still sound kind of bad, but I do feel a lot better. So I just might not sound like it. Yeah, he's definitely a con artist. But see, I don't doubt that he's in pain. What I doubt is the sincerity of what, him saying. I think it was, everything about him just seems like a scam to me. when he said, "I can't sit on the concrete." My man, you will be sitting on concrete for the rest of your life. Bless him. Bless him. RA raid. Woohoo. Woohoo. Thank you so much, Mary Murphy. I feel a lot better today. I am still not 100%, but I'm like 85%. So raid. Addicts coming. Raid. It's a little bit sore, but it's not too bad. I'm much better today. Much better today. Amber C says, has there been any talk from the lawyers or judge about how to keep him on methadone without it impacting his ability to participate in his trial? I see it as an upcoming appeal concern. I don't know. I mean, him talking to the judge and then also talking over the judge when she tried to answer about his medicine and all of that was kind of interesting. You know, him saying that that he wants to stay awake for it and he wants to, you know, try to not fall asleep and participate and all of that stuff. Telling her that, you know, he needs the doctor to come change this and this and this. I don't know that it would be an appeals thing though, but I know they talked about his medicine stuff. I can't stand him. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good morning to those of y'all joining us. Good morning. He can just take it at night. Yeah, that's one of the things that they said about he was, you know, he was trying to say that he needs the doctor to come change it so that he can sleep at night and not be tired during the day. Let's see. The jury, they started jury selection yesterday, but I'm hoping that everything's going to be done today and ready to go. It's Pacific time, so they should be starting court in about 45 minutes, but I think that I have to look and see. I don't know that they finished jury selection. I think that they were hoping it would be done yesterday, but I'm thinking it might be done today. So I'm still hoping that we will start opening statements later today. But the the hearings that they did, the hearings, I believe, are all over now. It's just jury selection that they're doing. Yeah, he is the epitome of repulsive. Just everything he says is just, it feels slimy, you know? Not a fan. Red Pen, hello. Hello. Red Pen says, hey, Brandy, hope you're feeling a bit better. You sound like maybe you are. Yes, I am. I am feeling better today. I am not 100%, but I am like 85% ish, I think. Okay, so the the last couple days when we were doing the hearings and stuff, I was sick. So I was going to give y'all the option. I know some of you watched it. And I know Recovery Addict covered them. So I know some of you watched it with him as well. If y'all want to watch the hearings, we can watch those. I think Let's see. Let me see if they have. Because I'm hoping that they start the opening statements today. All right, let's see. Let me pull them up. We'll watch them. Oh, they have another trial coming up today too. The ex-NFL player deadly DUI crash, which is apparently also in Nevada for Henry Ruggs. All right, let's see. 6th wife. Where is it? Let me. We'll watch these. Because neither of them are too terribly long. We'll watch these and then let me fast forward to the part where they come in, where he comes in. And then I know they're still doing jury selection, so we can take a morning break. Trying to see part where he comes in. Let's see. So this is the one. I hate that noise. This is the one from 2 days ago. Okay, so something that's funny too. They bring him in front of the judge and everything. Like they bring him in his wheelchair and everything. But did y'all notice that when he got up to leave, he was standing to leave. Like he stood up and he grabbed his documents and stuff and went out when the judge wasn't in there.
All right, let's go on the record and see 250966. State of Nevada versus Thomas Randolph. Make the record reflect Mr. Randolph is present with Mr. Tomczyk and Mr. Orm. Ms. Wackerby and Mr. Hammond are here on behalf of the state. All right, so this is on for several motions. It's my understanding Detective Mogg needs to testify.
Your Honor, respectfully, the state is asking for him to go first. He has some paperwork associated with his retirement that he needs to do.
And which motion is he? This is the motion limited to suppress video walkthrough?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so let's start with that one.
Okay.
Let's start with defendant's motion to eliminate suppress video walkthrough.
We have no objection to him going first, but just real quick, I'd let the state know I was going to do this. Mr. Randolph has an issue regarding his medical condition as it relates to the trial.
Okay.
He had a specific request of the court that he be allowed to be taken back to his unit where he had extended breaks like over the lunch hour.
Okay.
That will help him regulate his medicine and eat and make sure that he can stay awake during trial. That's a concern for both he and his counsel.
Okay.
He also has a number of health issues that Your Honor is aware of.
I'm aware.
So assuming that we can accommodate that, I think it would make the trial process much smoother for everyone.
All right, I'm not gonna put that on you, I know, that's not the decision that you make. I will call over to the jail on our lunch break and have a discussion with them regarding that.
Excellent, thank you.
I like this judge.
So I can't make any promises
I
that
do.
that happens today. Would you be able to get through today?
Yeah, I'd probably get through all of it, but it's just the sitting
Okay.
and compressing of the discs, and it's just gonna make things a lot worse. And then I need to get my medicine at a set time. It just makes me nod off the medicine, but it's just a matter of getting it at a different time so that I'm nodding off, not in court. We keep talking about it, but they send somebody and they'll say it has to be Dr. Mapleton, but I never see him, so.
I'm just saying today, when we break for lunch today, I'm gonna call the jail and address this issue with them. So this officer's not gonna have any notification today of what them and I talked about over lunch, but we should be able to have that addressed by tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so let's go with this. Defense motion to limit the suppressed video walkthrough may the record reflect that the court has read the motion as well as the court has read the state's opposition. We are prepared for the evidence hearing.
I agree. Chrissy
Okay.
Bacon, I agree.
Just for the record, Your Honor, did you review the video of the?
I did, I have had an opportunity, Mr. Tomczak provided me the video, and there were approximately 15-minute sections.
Correct.
Was that the totality?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I saw.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I'll just get some technical.
All right.
Yeah, he does. This is the judge. This is the judge for the trial. And I like her a lot. He had a female judge for the last one too.
Smog, M-O-G-G.
Fast forward just a bit.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, how are you employed?
I'm a detective with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Homicide Section. I've been a police officer for over 35 years, with Metro for 27, and assigned to the Homicide Section for 20 years.
Okay, these are my next three questions. Were you part of the group of detectives that were assigned to investigate the murder of Sharon Randolph as well as Michael Miller?
I was.
Did you respond to the original scene on the 8th of May of 2008?
That's correct.
Actually, kind of going into the 9th of May, did you sit down and interview the defendant, Thomas Randolph?
I did.
Was that with Detective Hardy?
Correct.
You see Mr. Randolph in the courtroom today?
I do. Seated next to defense counsel, wearing a headset.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant?
The record was so what?
That first interview was conducted at Metro headquarters.
Correct.
Sometime after that, were you participating or were you a participant in a video walkthrough at the Rancho Santa Fe residence?
I was on May 15th.
Okay, can you kind of walk the court through the logistics of how that was arranged with Mr. Randolph to the extent you're have personal knowledge of that?
Just one second. It's May 15th of 2008, correct?
That's correct now. So on May 14th, I spoke to Mr. Randolph via telephone and asked him if he was still willing to do the walkthrough. He was. We scheduled it for the evening of the 15th at about 8 o'clock at night, I believe is when it started.
Did he arrive, I assume obviously he's out of custody at this point.
Correct.
Did he arrive,
Hold on just one second. Okay, Mr. Randolph? Mr. Randolph, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, Mr. Randolph, the only person I can hear is you. So I know that you're trying to whisper, but just keep in mind, I'm picking up everything you're saying, and it's hard for me to hear Detective Bond.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know what you and Mr. Orr want to work out, but I can only hear you. Okay?
Mr. Randolph obviously is out of custody on the 14th,
That's correct.
and you contacted him with the phone number that he provided to you.
Yes.
And it sounds like there might have been a discussion prior to the 14th about doing a walkthrough. Is that fair, or was it first broached on the 14th?
There was discussion.
Okay, prior to that.
Yes.
And then you asked him if he could meet the next evening on the 15th?
Correct.
And was the time 8:30 in the evening important with regard to the case?
I believe we wanted to try and make it the same time as when the incident was reported, or as close as we could get to that. And we also wanted to make it convenient for both us and Mr. Randolph.
Okay. When you got there, what other Metro personnel were present?
My sergeant, Rocky Albee, I believe Detective Rob Wilson was there, Detective Dino Kelly, myself, and then there was the Metro videographer, and I can't recall his name.
Okay. The videographer, is that person associated, or was that person associated with homicide, or was that person just there to film?
No, he's not associated with our section. He is a Metro employee, and that was just what he did for the department, was video recordings.
And when we're talking video back in 2008, right? This wasn't done on a phone or anything like that.
That's correct.
And so it was like a bigger camera?
Large camera.
Okay, and that person's duty was not to ask questions, but just document what took place?
Correct.
When you got there, did you get there before Mr. Randolph, or was he there before you?
No, we got there prior to.
Okay, did you see Mr. Randolph arrive?
He arrived with, I believe it was his brother, and I don't recall his name.
Okay, and did both of those individuals get out of the car?
Yes.
Did you speak to the brother at all, or were you only speaking with Mr. Randolph?
I believe I introduced Mr. Randolph and his brother to all of my partners who were present, kind of explained to them what was going on. And then after that, I just dealt with Mr. Randolph.
Okay, and where did the brother go while you were speaking with Mr. Randolph?
I believe he went to the backyard and sat back there with Sergeant Albee.
Okay, and so he isn't interacting with yourself or Mr. Randolph at all during the course of the walkthrough?
No.
When Mr. Randolph arrived, did he ask to move the walkthrough to a different day?
No.
Did he say he wasn't prepared to do the walkthrough?
No.
Did he say he had ingested any medication or any kind of substance which would make it difficult for him to do the walkthrough?
No.
Did he ask for any kind of delay whatsoever in doing the walkthrough?
None.
Once the walkthrough started, was there a point in time when the videotapes had to be changed because they were sort of filled up with data?
Correct.
During the times there's no filming going on, did Mr. Randolph ask to stop the walkthrough at all?
I don't recall him ever asking to stop the walkthrough.
Do you recall him ever asking to delay the walkthrough or take a break during the walkthrough?
Toward the end of the walkthrough, I believe he made some mention of his back hurting. And after that, it was only a couple minutes before it ended.
Okay. After the walkthrough, I assume he leaves with his brother?
Yes,
And then you, the homicide people, all leave as well as the videographer?
correct.
At any time prior to him doing the walkthrough, was it suggested to him that if he did not do the walkthrough, he would be arrested?
Not by me.
Okay.
Nobody
Anytime,
that I heard talk to him said that either.
okay. Anytime during the walkthrough, did you hear anyone tell him you either do the walkthrough or you will be arrested?
No.
You didn't hear anyone else say that either, I assume?
No.
Anytime, to your knowledge, or within any time that you had conversations with Mr. Randolph, was there ever a threat made that if he did not participate in this walkthrough, he would be arrested?
No.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness, Sharon.
Cross.
Morning, Detective Mogg.
Morning, Mr. Tomczyk.
How are you?
I'm well, and you?
I'm good, thanks. Just want to talk to you about a couple of issues related to the testimony you just gave on direct examination, okay?
Yes,
Okay. You were aware of the investigation as to the homicides that occurred back on May 8th, a week prior to the walkthrough date, right?
that's correct.
Were you present at the scene?
I was.
Did you walk the scene?
I did.
Were you present when photographs were taken?
I may have been present when some were taken.
I didn't kill any of them.
Jeez. Okay. Let's see. So they ended that one because the audio was bad.
walkthrough At all?
I don't recall him ever asking to stop the walkthrough.
Do you recall him ever asking to delay the walkthrough or take a break during the walkthrough?
Toward the end of the walkthrough, I believe he made some mention of his back hurting. And after that, it was only a couple minutes before it ended.
Okay. After the walkthrough, I assume he leaves with his brother?
Yes,
And then you, the homicide people, all leave as well as the videographer?
correct.
At any time prior to him doing the walkthrough, was it suggested to him that if he did not do the walkthrough, he would be arrested?
Not by me.
Okay.
Nobody
Anytime-
that I heard talk to him said that either.
Okay. Anytime during the walkthrough, did you hear anyone tell him you either do the walkthrough or you will be arrested?
No.
You didn't hear anyone else say that either, I assume?
No.
Anytime, to your knowledge, or within any time that you had conversations with Mr. Randolph, was there ever a threat made that if he did not participate in this walkthrough, he would be arrested?
No.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness, Sharon.
Cross.
Morning, Detective Mogg.
Morning, Mr. Tomczyk.
How are you?
I'm well, and you?
I'm good, thanks. I just want to talk to you about a couple of issues related to the testimony you just gave on direct examination, okay?
Yes,
Okay. You were aware of the investigation as to the homicides that occurred back on May 8th, a week prior to the walkthrough date, right?
that's correct.
Were you present at the scene?
I was.
Did you walk the scene?
I did.
Were you present when photographs were taken?
I may have been present when some were taken. My main focus, though, was Mr. Randolph and interviewing him while the scene was being investigated.
Okay. And while that was taking place, you left from the scene and went down to Metro headquarters in order to conduct that interview in the very early morning hours of May 9th, right?
That's correct.
And that was a videotaped, recorded interview with yourself and your partner at the time, Mr. Hardy, right?
Correct.
Okay. In the week between that interview and when you ultimately did the walkthrough, yourself and other homicide detectives discussed things that were relevant to the investigation, right?
That's correct.
One of the things that you were aware of very early on is that Mr. Randolph took some prescription pain medication.
Yes,
In fact, there was quite a bit of prescription pain medication prescribed to him that was present at the Rancho Santa Fe address, right?
I believe I saw medication, yes.
Okay. And as you discussed with other detectives in the course of the investigation, that was an issue that came up more than once, right?
Which issue?
That he was on prescription medication.
I don't believe it was ever an issue. We knew that he took medication for pain. I believe it was for his back.
Okay. And you mentioned that during the course of the walkthrough, he actually talked to you about that back pain
At the end.
during the course of the walkthrough, right?
At the end of the walkthrough, yes.
Okay. Is it your testimony that you were unaware prior to the inception of the walkthrough on the 15th that he had taken pain medication?
I would have no knowledge if he took pain medication or not.
Have you watched the walkthrough?
I have.
Would you agree with me that as you observe him on that walkthrough, you see indicia of some type of impairment?
It depends at what point there is an indication of some type of impairment. When he had to get down on his knees and get back up, he complained that there was a little bit of pain. But other than that, it wasn't like he was complaining consistently of pain.
Okay. And maybe my question wasn't clear. You'd agree with me at some point, I think you said it was towards the end, he did make a complaint about pain. Yes?
Yes,
You would agree with me that independent of any self-reporting of pain, there was indicia in things that you saw in Mr. Randolph that evening that he was under the influence of something.
under the influence, no.
Okay. Is it your testimony you didn't see him having, for instance, droopy eyes?
Not any more than the first time that I talked to him.
Okay. Would you agree with me that both of those conversations you had droopy eyes?
I don't know what he normally looks like outside of my contact with him, but he was able to answer questions intelligently. He recalled things. He spoke clearly. I didn't believe that he was in any type of impaired condition.
Okay. Take you back to my question. Did you see droopy eyes or not?
Yes,
Okay. And did you see droopy eyes prior to the walkthrough on the 15th of May?
yes.
Okay. When the tape first starts rolling on the walkthrough, it appears to me as if there's a little bit of slurring of words. Would you agree with that?
No.
Okay. It's your testimony that as you watched the walkthrough, you didn't see any indicia of impairment in the form of slurred words.
I didn't notice any.
Did you ask him prior to rolling tape on the walkthrough whether or not he had ingested any mind-altering substances?
I don't recall. I don't believe so.
Okay. So for instance, like when we're in a courtroom and we're going to ask somebody something important, one of the things the judge asks them is, are you under the influence? Have you taken any medication that may impact your ability to talk in court today? You're aware of that, right?
Correct.
Okay. You didn't ask him any questions like that, did you?
Did not.
Okay. You were aware that he had multiple different versions of opioid related medications for the treatment of pain, right?
I believe so, yes.
And you know that the ingestion of opioids can affect someone's ability to perceive things, to understand things, and to articulate things, right?
I don't know that I would go that far
Okay.
because I know people who use pain medications and they function just fine.
Agree. But there's also people that ingest pain medications that don't function just fine, right?
Correct.
And as a result of that, people are given warnings when they take pain medications that you shouldn't do certain things, right?
That's correct.
Because it can impact your normal human faculties, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you agree with me, you didn't ask him any of those questions prior to the walkthrough.
I didn't ask any of those questions. I didn't notice anything that would cause me to ask that question.
Okay. So in answer to my question, you didn't ask anything.
No, sir.
Okay. Do you recall having communication with Mr. Randolph after your interview on the 9th and prior to the walkthrough on the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall speaking to him on the telephone the evening of the 15th prior to the walkthrough?
I don't recall the 15th. I know I spoke to him from what I recall from the report on the 14th.
Okay. The cellular telephone that you were using as a Metro detective back in 2008, did it end in the digits 5608?
Yes.
If there was a phone call on the evening of 5/15/2008 at 19:18 hours, just for the record in real people time, what time is that?
7:18 p.m.
Okay. Between yourself and Mr. Randolph's cellular telephone lasting 68 seconds, would you dispute that you or someone using your phone spoke to him?
No, not at all.
As you sit,
On the 14th,
the 15th,
the 15th. At what time?
19:18 hours.
7:18. Okay. Is it incoming or outgoing?
It is a call from Detective Mogg to Thomas Randolph's cell phone.
Okay.
You don't dispute that that call was placed?
No, not at all. That would have been me calling to make sure that he was still coming.
Okay. Do you remember anything else about the content of that call?
I do not.
Okay. Do you remember telling Mr. Randolph that it was necessary that he come?
Well, it would be necessary for him to be there if we were going to do a walkthrough.
Do you recall telling him that if he didn't come, there would be consequences?
No.
Do you recall threatening him with arrest as a material witness if he didn't attend?
No.
Okay. Why then did you call him at 20:03 hours on that same night?
Probably the same reason, see if he was going to be there.
Do you remember what time you arrived at the Rancho Santa Fe address?
I don't.
Okay. Do you remember what time the walkthrough started?
Somewhere around 8,
Okay. Roughly 8 o'clock?
approximately.
Okay. You would agree with me that if you called him at 20:03 hours to see where he was at, he probably wasn't there yet.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. The time that the walkthrough begins, is that documented on the walkthrough itself?
Thank you, Lynn.
It should be on the videos when they start recording.
Okay. You mentioned on direct examination that there were a number of different, well, let me back up for 1 second. You don't dispute that you called from that same cellular telephone ending in 5608 to Mr. Randolph's cellular telephone ending in 4285 at 20:03 hours?
No.
Right? And that you talked to him for approximately a minute.
I don't dispute that.
Okay. Do you dispute that you made threats to him on that call?
Yes,
Okay. Is it your testimony that at no time you yourself told him he would be arrested as a material witness if he did not attend?
that's correct.
Okay. You just don't remember the content of that call.
I don't. I'm sure that it would have been something along the lines of, are you still on your way? How far out are you?
Okay. Do you recall when you spoke to him on either of those telephone calls or at any other time prior to the 15th of May about him staying at a different residence? Do you recall any conversation about that?
I know I had conversation with him about staying somewhere else. I thought it might have been a family member's residence, possibly, just because he didn't want to be at the house.
Did you ever discuss with him whether or not he was staying at a hotel at any time during that week time period between the homicide and the 15th?
I could have, but I don't recall.
Do you recall ever getting a telephone call from him staying at a hotel on that cellular telephone ending in 5608?
I know I received several calls from Mr. Randolph. I don't recall the dates that I received every one of them.
Okay. Do you recall how long the walkthrough lasted?
I would estimate in the area of an hour, less, somewhere around there.
So in the information that was given to counsel in this case, there are 4 separate videos, which are each just a little over 15 minutes. Does that sound right?
That sounds correct.
Okay. Is it your testimony that the only thing that happened between the break in those videos was the changing of tape?
I don't recall anything happening between the break in the videos.
Do you know how long the break in the videos was?
I do not.
Okay. Could it have been more than a couple minutes?
It could have been.
Do you have any idea whatsoever?
No.
Okay. During the breaks in the video, did you have any conversations with Mr. Randolph?
I don't believe so. I think I did the first part, and then I think Detective O'Kelly took over.
During the breaks in the video, can you say whether or not Detective O'Kelly had any communication with Mr. Randolph?
Well, I'm sure we did.
You just can't tell us what it was about.
I don't recall what that conversation would have been.
Okay. After the video walkthrough ended, what happened?
We left. Mr. Randolph left. That was it.
Okay. Do you recall after you left the Rancho Santa Fe address receiving a call from Mr. Randolph to your cellular telephone ending in 5608 at 22:39 hours?
Apparently I did.
Do you recall that?
I don't recall it.
Okay. That call lasted about 4 minutes. Do you have any recollection of what you talked about?
None.
Okay. Do you remember discussing with Mr. Randolph the fact that he had in his possession bloody clothes related to the homicide?
I don't recall.
Would there be a reason you wouldn't want to take possession of clothes he was offering you that had apparent evidence on them?
So I didn't conduct the crime scene investigation. If he had bloody clothes that I was aware of that night, I would have told Detective O'Kelly and the crime scene investigators there. It would have been up to them to decide whether or not they felt that it was evidence that needed to be collected.
Okay. So in other words, you don't have any meaningful testimony to give because you're just the wrong witness.
I'm what?
Just the wrong witness for that question.
That's correct.
Doesn't he
Okay.
look like Chris Kattan?
Do you have any ability to tell the court what you and Mr. Randolph talked about for that 4-minute phone call?
No.
After the interview ended, you mentioned Mr. Randolph left and you all left, being yourself, Detective Wilson, Detective O'Kelly, Sergeant Albee, and the videographer, right?
Yes.
After the tape stopped rolling and before you all departed, did you observe Detective O'Kelly having a conversation with Mr. Randolph?
I'm sure I did, but I don't recall what that conversation would have been.
Do you recall any communication, either by yourself or by other detectives in your presence, to Mr. Randolph at the conclusion of the interview, wherein there were representations made to Mr. Randolph that there were problems with his story?
I believe Detective O'Kelly may have said something to that effect.
Do you recall any threats made by Detective O'Kelly to Mr. Randolph during that conversation?
No.
Fortunately.
Pass it, Judge.
Thank you. Detective Mogg, the calls that were referenced by counsel that took place, like one was at 8 and I think one was like 20 minutes till 8. I think you explained that those were sort of confirming with Mr. Randolph that he's on his way.
That's the only thing I could imagine that I would have spoke to Mr. Randolph about.
Okay, anything unusual about that since you're meeting, you're meeting at a particular location, you're not in the homicide offices?
Not at all, because we would have arrived before him, so I wanted to make sure that he was still en route.
Okay, and as a police officer, you've had training in recognizing when someone is under the influence?
That's correct.
And your training would include noting particular physiological signs, if they're slurring words, how they appear, if they don't appear oriented, that type of thing.
Yes.
In your discussions with Mr. Randolph on the 15th, did he appear oriented?
Yes.
Did he appear lucid?
Yes.
Was he tracking the conversation?
Yes.
Did he give any answers that seemed illogical or sort of
Hold on. He does look like him. It's something about the nostrils and the cheeks and the inset of the eyes. Like this. This is literally Chris Kattan. Just saying. Okay. Sorry, we can go back to like actual stuff now. And the hairline, yes.
you had that he was having trouble tracking your questions or following what you were saying?
No.
Now, there was discussion about the phrase, "you'll be arrested as a material witness" on cross. Does that have any meaning to you as a homicide detective?
At that point in the investigation, he was the victim of the burglary. His wife was a victim of the murder. And the other person who was shot at that point, this was a case at that point of a possible self-defense. So he was not a material witness. He was a witness.
Right. And do you recall ever using that terminology to suggest if he didn't cooperate, he would be arrested as a, quote, material witness?
No.
The video walkthrough took place on the 15th, correct?
That's correct.
There was another interview of Mr. Randolph on June 3rd, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
In between those two interviews, was he arrested?
No.
So presumably on that June 3rd interview, he drove down and met with yourself and Detective O'Kelly,
Yes,
and that was voluntary.
correct.
He could have stopped, he could have not appeared.
Yes,
And actually, for that matter, during the walkthrough, he could have stopped it if he wanted to.
yes.
With regard to the prescription medication mentioned by defense counsel, I think you said at the scene you saw evidence of prescription medication in the home.
Yes,
You would have no knowledge of what Mr. Randolph took or didn't take prior to meeting with you for the walkthrough?
No.
You certainly didn't have a detailed accounting from him as to what he took before he met with you?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Any recourse?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, we got the excuse. Executive on your excuse, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I love it when we cast the movies.
Are there any other witnesses in regards to this motion?
There are, Your Honor, we have Detective O'Kelly, who's also present at the walkthrough.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to point out when Detective O'Kelly comes in, like Detective O'Kelly with a beard.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
He looks like a whole different man.
Will you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
It's Dean, Dean, O'Kelly, O''Kelley.
Okay.
Sir, how were you employed back in May of 2008?
With the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Section.
How long in total did you work for Metro?
20 years, 10 months, but then I'm back also as a cold case investigator
Okay.
since 2015.
But back in 08, you were assigned to homicide.
That's correct.
Were you one of the detectives that responded to Rancho Santa Fe to investigate the murder of Sharon Randolph and Michael Miller?
I was.
When you got to that scene on the 8th, what were your responsibilities?
We gathered together with the senior crime scene analysts that were on scene, the other detectives. There were a couple of patrolmen that were there as well that had got the initial information, and we briefed what we had at that point.
Okay. During your time at the scene on the 8th, did you see Mr. Randolph at all?
I did not.
And I should back up a little bit. Do you see Mr. Randolph in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Could you point to him and describe what he's wearing today?
He's wearing a dark blue shirt and he has headphones on. He's looking down, writing on a sheet
Your
of
Honor,
paper.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant?
The record is over.
And sir, if I think I talked over you a little bit. If I understand your answer, you did not see Mr. Randolph at the scene?
I did not.
Did you, the entirety of the, sort of the 8th through the 9th, did you interact with him at all?
No, I did not.
You're aware, of course, at this point that in the early morning of May 9th, he participated in an interview with homicide detectives.
Yes, that's correct.
And that was Detective Mogg and Detective Hardy.
Yes.
You weren't present at that.
No, I was not.
At some point after that interview, was there discussion amongst detectives to see if Mr. Randolph would do a walkthrough, sort of reenacting what happened from his perspective on the night of the 8th?
Yes, there was.
And was that arranged by yourself or by another detective?
Myself and my partner, Detective Wilson, who was on vacation at the time on the 8th, he was back. And we talked together about the possibility of doing the walkthrough video.
Who was the person that contacted Mr. Randolph to see if he would agree to do a walkthrough?
We approached Detective Mogg to do that because he'd already established a rapport with Mr. Randolph on the night of the 8th and into the morning of the 9th.
Okay, so that's arranged and yourself and other detectives go to the Rancho Santa Fe address on the 15th?
Yes, we did. It was a week later to the day and at right around the same time that the event took place.
Okay, to the best of your recollection, who was there from homicide that night?
Well, my partner, Rob Wilson, was back, so he was there. Rocky Albee, my sergeant, who's since passed away. There was Don Bell from the video crew and Detective Mogg.
Okay, so yourself, Rob Wilson, Detective Mogg, and Rocky Albee, those are the 4 from homicide?
Correct. And then Don Bell, the videographer.
Okay, the videographer, was he connected to homicide at all?
Not at all.
Okay. Did you guys, to your recollection, arrive ahead of Mr. Randolph?
We did.
And at some point, obviously, you see Mr. Randolph arrive.
That's correct, with his brother, Joe.
Okay. When they arrive, who was the person that went up and greeted them?
Detective Mogg.
At some point, do you recall if you were introduced to Mr. Randolph and or his brother?
Yes, we were. Detective Mogg introduced each of the people that were there. And as I recall, Mr. Randolph introduced his brother, Joe, to the rest of us.
After that introduction, do you recall where Mr. Randolph's brother went?
He went into the backyard of the residence, accompanied by Sergeant Albee.
Okay. Were you present when Detective Mogg started the recording of the video with Mr. Randolph?
Yes, myself and Detective Mogg and Detective Wilson were present when that occurred.
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Randolph ever requesting that the walkthrough be delayed?
No,
Do you recall him saying, hey, look, I've taken a bunch of medication. I really don't think I can do this?
No.
Do you recall him saying, I just don't want to do this at all? Anything like that?
no.
The video is recorded in 4 segments, and I assume the tape had to be changed because it was older technology back then?
The tape was changed at one point. There was an introduction to our presence there, why we were there. That was with Mr. Randolph. And then we went outside to where the vehicles were so he could demonstrate how the vehicle went into the garage.
Okay.
Once that portion was done where we had gotten into the garage, then it was stopped and we went into the hallway and it was resumed with the Detective Mogg talking with Mr. Randolph for the remainder of that tape.
Okay.
And then there was a change out of the tape. And then after that, then I speak with Mr. Randolph for the remainder of the video.
During the change out of the tape where there's no recording going on, did Mr. Randolph request to stop the walkthrough?
No.
Did he say, I want to delay this?
No.
Did he say, I'm on too much medication, so I can't participate in this?
No.
You said that from that tape change onward is when you're the one interacting with Mr. Randolph.
Yes.
Other than the introduction that we spoke about when he and his brother arrived, was that the first time that you spoke to Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
You didn't speak to him on the phone any time between the 8th or 9th and the 15th?
No, I've never spoken to Mr. Randolph on the phone.
Okay. So when you kind of start on the video walkthrough, that's your kind of more meaningful first discussion with Mr. Randolph?
That's correct. It's like we would normally do in an interview, a standard interview. One detective would take the lead, and then once you get to a certain point, it gets kind of turned over to the other detective.
Okay. And then you kind of speak with him until the end of the walkthrough?
That's correct. All the way until the tape shuts off.
Okay. The tape obviously shuts off at some point?
Yes, it does. Right as I'm explaining to Mr. Randolph that we want to gather some more evidence in the house prior to him signing the second consent to search card.
Did he sign that?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And then at some point, this kind of gets shut down for the night and yourself and Mr. Randolph and his brother leave?
Yes.
Thank you, RA.
Did you have any conversation with Mr. Randolph and the brother prior to them leaving?
I don't know that Joe was standing there when I spoke to Mr. Randolph, but yes, after right before we left, I told Mr. Randolph that there were issues with what we had found at the scene versus what he had told us, and that oftentimes clarification can be done through a follow-up interview or even a polygraph examination. Mr. Randolph explained to us that he would be going to Utah for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks is what he said. And then he anticipated coming back on June 5th, as I recall. He must have come back a couple of days early because we did do a subsequent interview with him on June 3rd.
Did you tell him he was required to do that second interview on June 3rd? I guess it's really the third interview though at this point.
No,
Did he, on that June 3rd interview, did he call you guys to let you know, hey, I'm back early?
I know there was, yes, there was some phone conversation between him and Detective Mogg to arrange for him to come in. All the contacts were with between Detective Mogg and Mr. Randolph because they had developed a relationship, even to the point in that second interview that Mr. Randolph calls Detective Mogg like his best friend.
Right. So and then the June 3rd interview happens, and after that, Mr. Randolph leaves the interview, and he's not arrested for weeks and weeks later.
That's correct, months.
Months, yeah, probably. So At any point, did you, with regard to the walkthrough, so now I'm talking about the time period between like the 8th, 9th, and the 15th, did you ever call Mr. Randolph and say, if you don't participate in the walkthrough, you'll be arrested?
No.
Did you ever tell him, if you don't participate in the walkthrough, you'll be arrested as a material witness?
No.
With regard to you having that conversation with him at the end of the walkthrough, where you say, look, there's some issues, we could maybe do a polygraph or have a subsequent interview. Did you tell him, look, if you don't do those two things, you'll be arrested, or you have to do those two things, or you'll be arrested?
No, not at all. We were maintaining that level of cooperative, exchange between Mr. Randolph and, again, the spokesperson for homicide was Detective Mogg. And, we wanted him to, to continue to participate voluntarily.
Okay, and he leaves the walkthrough and he leaves the June 3rd interview on his own accord because he's not arrested.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Cross.
She's got her treat.
Morning, Detective.
Good morning, Counselor.
Your testimony is that you never spoke to Thomas Randolph until the 15th. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the first time you spoke to him is when he showed up at the Rancho Santa Fe address in order to conduct this video recorded walkthrough.
Yes.
Okay. Prior to him showing up at let me ask you this question. What time did he arrive at Rancho Santa Fe?
I know we got there at 8 o'clock, and it was maybe 15, 20 minutes after we had been there before he arrived. I'm not sure the exact time.
Okay. Were you present with Detective Mogg in the time period leading up to 8 o'clock?
Yes.
Did you arrive at the Rancho Santa Fe address in the same vehicle?
No.
Were you present with Detective Mogg when he spoke to Thomas Randolph on the telephone?
I don't recall if I heard any exchange with him on the phone with Detective Mogg, but I know he's the only one that had contact with him.
Would you agree with me that you have no meaningful information to provide about what Detective Mogg and Thomas Randolph spoke about on the telephone?
I agree with that.
Okay. What you do have meaningful testimony to provide is about after Thomas Randolph arrived.
Correct.
Do you remember when he arrived?
Again, I'd say probably, 15, 20 minutes after we had arrived. I believe that we were able to start on time with when we anticipated the actual event took place. So it would be a week following at the same time so that the ambient light would be the same.
Okay. And if my question wasn't clear, I wasn't asking for a time frame he arrived. I'm asking if you remember the moment in which he arrived.
I remember when he got there, yes, with his brother.
Okay. Was his brother driving?
Yes.
Do you know why his brother was driving?
I have no idea.
His brother doesn't live in Las Vegas, right?
No, I don't believe. I believe he lives in Clearfield, Utah.
Presumably the person that lives in Las Vegas would be more familiar with the area, right?
Certainly. With his own house, yes.
Okay. And you'd agree with me, his brother drove him there.
Yes.
Is it your testimony you don't recall his brother telling yourself and other detectives that Mr. Randolph was impaired?
No, other than the introduction to Joe Randolph, I didn't speak to him at all.
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Randolph telling you that he had taken prescription medication?
No.
You were the detective responsible for the scene investigation immediately following the homicides on the evening of the 8th of May.
That's correct.
And as such, you were familiar with what was contained within the scene.
Yes.
And that included photographs that were taken.
Yes.
And you actually physically saw a large amount of prescription opioid medication prescribed to Mr. Randolph, right?
I did. I saw patches, pain patches, and suppositories in the headboard in Mr. Randolph's master bedroom.
Okay. You were aware that he was prescribed prescription opioid medication, right?
At least those. I mean, his name was on the box.
Okay. And you're aware that one of the side effects of that type of medication is that it can affect verbal and motor skills, right?
Certainly.
Certainly people are warned not to drive a vehicle, for instance, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that sometimes taking an opioid type medication can impact ability to recall, right?
I don't know specifically on memory. I mean, I imagine that could be true, but I wouldn't know.
It can impact your ability to perceive things.
I'd expect that that's true, but again, I don't know. I've never taken any prescription medication.
Certainly you've heard that, right?
Certainly.
And you're aware that can impact your ability to move, to function.
I'd expect so, yes.
Okay. Prior to the start of the walkthrough interview, did you ask Mr. Randolph if he was under the influence?
No.
Would you agree with me that should be something you're concerned about if you're going to do a walkthrough video where you're asking someone to reenact important events?
Had I observed anything that I thought brought that into question, then I would have asked that question. I didn't see that.
Okay. It's your testimony. You didn't see, for instance, Mr. Randolph having droopy eyes.
I did, and not that he's able to testify to it, but I remember looking at Sergeant Albee when Don Bell put the camera up on his shoulder. That was the first time that Mr. Randolph, and only time that Mr. Randolph exhibited that trait of the droopy eyes. Okay. It went away immediately after he was done with that portion of the video.
You would agree with me that he exhibited some slurred speech as well?
He did during that portion, and that was it.
Okay. So if I were to play for you the walkthrough of the video, you don't in any way dispute the fact that visibly there is indicia of droopy eyes and slurred speech?
At that particular moment when the camera was put on Don Bell's shoulder, yes.
Okay. And that's when the walkthrough started, right?
Yes, prior to going outside, yes.
Okay. Do you remember what time the walkthrough actually commenced?
I don't. I mean, it'd be right around 8:30, 8:35 p.m.
Okay. Your goal was to have Mr. Randolph arrive around the same time as you, right?
Correct.
You didn't want to start videotaping until approximately 8:30, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
You would agree with me he arrived a few minutes after 8:03, ballpark?
Yes.
Okay. So there's approximately 25-ish minutes between when he arrives till the tape starts rolling, right?
I'd agree with that.
You'd agree with me that during that time you had a conversation with Mr. Randolph.
I did not.
You had no conversation with Mr. Randolph between the time he arrived until the video started?
None whatsoever. Detective Mogg was the only one that communicated with Mr. Randolph.
Where did that communication take place?
Well, we met him outside, and then we went into the house, so both outside the house and inside the house.
Was there a conversation that took place in the garage?
At some point, yes, because we had Mr. Randolph demonstrate how he pulled into the garage with the Tucson, Hyundai Tucson.
Backing up, prior to the video rolling, was there a conversation that took place in the garage?
I don't remember if we talked in the garage or I believe we talked out front and in the house.
Okay. And when you say we, you're not including yourself in that we?
Right. I mean, I was there, I was present, but Detective Mogg spoke with Mr. Randolph the entire time.
Okay. Is it your testimony that Mr. Randolph's brother did not indicate that he shouldn't engage in the walkthrough that evening because of his impairment?
I had no conversation with his brother, and I didn't hear him convey that to anyone present.
Was there any conversation or concern amongst yourself, Detective Mogg, and Sergeant Albee about his impairment?
No.
During the walkthrough, and there's already been some testimony about this, what we received is 4 separate, approximately 15-minute clips. Is that your memory of how that walkthrough is preserved?
Correct.
You would agree with me that between each of those 4, there's a break in the tape?
No, that it was converted from VHS to digital, and I think that's the format that it ended up taking because of the volume, the specific volume of that digital recording, and that's how it broke up. But Don Bell recorded everything on 2 separate VHS tapes.
Okay, so is it your testimony there's only 1 break in the actual VHS recording?
That's correct.
Okay. Do those originals still exist?
I don't know. I haven't seen them. We never had a VHS tape in the case file. We have the digital.
Were they immediately converted to digital?
I'd imagine. I mean, again, I never had a VHS tape in our case file.
How long was the break that took place between the changing of the first tape into the recording of the second tape?
as long as it took Mr. Bell to pop out one tape and put in the other. And then Mr. Randolph was in the hallway with me, and I spoke for the remainder of the walkthrough.
Okay. Was it pre-designed that you would take over the walkthrough at the change of tape?
I think it was a convenient point in time for me then to take over because I had observed what Mr. Randolph was talking about with Detective Mogg that entire time, taking notes myself of questions that I wanted to ask Mr. Randolph. And at that point in time that we changed the tape, that was a perfect opportunity for me then to take over and tell the remainder of the tape.
Did you discuss that with Detective Mogg prior to that transition happening?
No.
It just naturally occurred.
Correct.
And you can't tell us how long the tape wasn't running.
Again, it's going to be the amount of time that it took for one tape to come out and the other one to go in. It was a very short period of time.
Okay.
A couple of minutes at the most.
Couple meaning 2?
I would say 2.
Could it have been 3?
I mean, I guess it's possible that but I'd imagine that Mr. Bell is pretty proficient at changing tapes in his camcorder. He's done it for several years.
Could have been 1 minute?
It's possible. I didn't time it.
Possible it could have been 3?
It's possible that it could have been 3.
Okay. And as you sit here today, you don't have the ability to recall the exact amount of time.
No, I remember him changing the tapes and then we went right back to it.
You'd agree with me that unless someone's running a stopwatch or recording it, it's almost impossible to remember the exact amount of time, right?
That's correct.
Okay. What time did the video walkthrough end? The actual recorded portion?
You know, the best judge for that would be the signature and the timestamp on the consent to search card, because that's what we were addressing right at the end of the video, but it doesn't have a timestamp on it. I know it's approximately 58 minutes long.
Okay. After the conclusion of the recording, when you did the consent to search card, you didn't immediately leave, right?
No, we did not.
In fact, you continued to have conversation with Mr. Randolph.
No, I was done speaking with Mr. Randolph until we were getting ready to leave. I spoke with him. We were dealing with a crime scene analyst was able to respond out to the scene that we had requested, things that we had observed while we were there that we wanted
Actually,
to
more than one crime scene analyst, right?
Correct.
How many?
2.
Okay. Who was it?
We had Randy McPhail was there. He's the only one that I was dealing with. I can't recall who else responded.
Mike Perkins?
Yes, the senior crime scene analyst, the supervisor, yes.
Okay. And they actually impounded physical evidence, right?
Yes, they did.
Physical evidence that was discovered by Sergeant Albee.
Correct.
Physical evidence that you missed when you walked the scene.
Yes.
Okay. You agree with me that after the tape stopped, there is some point in time when you are having a direct conversation with Mr. Randolph.
Yes, shortly before we concluded everything that we were doing with the crime scene analyst and we were departing.
In that conversation, you had yourself developed a belief that maybe his story wasn't what happened in your view.
There were inconsistencies with the initial statement that he gave us and in the video walkthrough when compared to the actual evidence. And there were definitely things that we questioned and to attempt to clarify those things, I let Mr. Randolph know that doing a follow-up interview or a polygraph would be helpful.
Okay. You had at that point in time developed a gut feeling about Mr. Randolph, right?
Again, there were things about the scene that weren't consistent with what he said. So I definitely was looking at Mr. Randolph.
Okay. Not what I asked you. You'd agree with me that you developed a gut feeling about Mr. Randolph at that time.
I'm going to object. I think that's vague, and he's answered it in his own way. I'm not sure what Mr. Tomchek means by gut feeling.
Well, Mr. O'Kelly knows because he's previously said it.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and overrule the objection at this point. He can answer the question.
You would agree with me that you have previously said that you developed a feeling in your gut about Mr. Randolph, right?
Yes, but it was based on what I observed in his statements compared to what he said in the walkthrough video and what we had at the scene.
So at the conclusion of the walkthrough video, you'd already reviewed the statement that he made to Detectives Mogg and Hardy on 5/9, right?
Yes.
And then you watched the walkthrough, right?
Correct.
And at that point in time, you had a gut feeling about him, right?
It's accurate to say gut feeling, but it's not based on my gut. It was based on what he had told us versus the scene, both in his original statement, what he did in the walkthrough, and what the evidence that we had at the scene.
And you'd agree with me, you've previously described that as a gut feeling.
Yes.
Okay. That gut feeling was that Mr. Randolph was involved, right?
At that point, yes. I believe that it was very possible that he was involved. Again, we needed to clarify by having him come back and clear up some of those questions.
Okay. So the answer to my question is a yes.
Yes.
Okay. When you communicated with him at the conclusion of the walkthrough, that was with that gut feeling in mind, right?
I don't think that's accurate to say. I mean, we were wrapping things up and we were leaving, and I let Mr. Randolph know that we wanted him to come back in for a subsequent interview and potentially a polygraph to clarify or to clear up some of the issues that we have with the scene. It was a natural departing the scene and ending conversation with Mr. Randolph.
Okay. I don't want to say anything inaccurate. You would agree with me that you referenced to Mr. Randolph that you had problems with his description of the events.
Yes.
And you told him during that conversation that he would need to speak to you further, right?
I told him that to clarify, it would be a subsequent interview and potentially a polygraph. I didn't tell him that he had to do that to clarify it. I was letting him know that we had issues with the scene, that's what I told him, and that we can clarify by having him come back for an interview and potentially a polygraph examination, to which he responded that he was going to be gone for 2 weeks.
Okay. Do you recall in that conversation telling him that if he didn't continue to communicate with you by doing a polygraph or a subsequent interview, that he would be taken into custody?
No.
You don't recall that?
No, I did not say that.
Okay. Did you ever tell him to turn around and put his hands behind his back?
I did not.
Did you ever use the term material witness?
No.
Court's briefing moment.
I hope it starts this afternoon. I hope that they can finish jury selection this morning. Well, morning for them. Hope.
At the time you did the walkthrough on the 15th of May, were the crime scene markers, like the directionality arrows and the placards, still present in the crime scene?
No, it was actually after we were done with the walkthrough video. That's part of what Randy McPhail responded to the house to do. It was accomplished after the interview.
Okay. Was Randy McPhail still there when you left?
When we were all wrapping it up, yes, Randy McPhail we were all leaving together. Everything was done. And he may have gotten in his car a minute before we were done, but Randy McPhail was right there up to the end.
Okay. So is it your testimony the tape stops, there's a brief pause, a conversation with Mr. Randolph, and then everyone leaves at the same time?
No, as the tape is ceasing, you can hear that I'm explaining to Mr. Randolph that we have some marks that are on the wall that are clearer now, and that we wanted to then have a crime scene analyst come out, and the tape has stopped. So the only conversation that I had with Mr. Randolph at that point was to finish explaining to him that we were looking to mark those items on the wall. And we filled out the consent to search card, and there were we knew at that point in time 2 shell casings from the Makarov 9mm that Mr. Randolph used to shoot Mr. Miller, that those 2 were outstanding. So that was completed on the consent to search card. Mr. Randolph signed the card, and that's the last I had a conversation with him until we were just about to leave.
Okay. How much time transpired between the signing of that card until you left?
I'm not sure.
Was it-
It was probably an hour and a half, I'd say at least. I don't know.
That was my question. It was an extensive period of time.
Right. Randy McPhail had to respond out there. Mr. Perkins responded out to the house. We didn't have them standing by. That was something we observed during the walkthrough, and it was things that we needed documented. So it's their response time. Then they got their work done. It was pretty meticulous on the part of Mr. McPhail with all of the arrows. And then after that was completed and the 2 shell casings were recovered, then we wrapped it up and we were done. So it was probably, I mean, it was a good hour and a half, I'd say.
Okay. A lot of arrows put up
Oh, quite a few, yes.
and a lot of photographs taken
Correct.
and a number of pieces of evidence impounded,
Yes,
including biological samples.
that's correct.
Didn't happen in 5 minutes.
No, certainly not.
Mr. Randolph was there the whole time.
Yes, but I don't recall where he was. He was with his brother Joe, if they'd gone out to the backyard, or I was with Randy McPhail, and I don't think that Perkins stayed the entire time.
And is it your testimony that in that 90 minutes when Randy McPhail was doing his duties at the scene, that you didn't have communications with Thomas Randolph?
I did not talk with Mr. Randolph, no.
This is the lead detective, and he's been, I mean, this, you know, he worked for years to get this to trial, so he's ready for this. Ready for retrial too.
If there was reference in the file of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department that Randy McPhail arrived at 9:16 p.m., you wouldn't dispute that, right?
That could be accurate. I mean, if we had made the phone call to him prior to completing the video, and that's possible that, you know, because I know it was pretty clear, you could see the material on the walls. It had become much more clear. And so it's possible that we had called for him to come out while we were doing the walkthrough video. So his en route time could definitely have, that could be very accurate.
And I won't hold it to it because it's an estimate, but saying it's approximately 90 minutes, we're talking 90 minutes from his arrival time.
I would say from the completion of the walkthrough video so that he could be about his work. I mean, we're in his way at that point in time until we were done with the walkthrough video.
All right. If he was there 90 minutes, you agree with me that time wouldn't start till he arrived.
Correct.
So if he arrived at 9:16, we're talking 90 minutes past that.
I would say, though, to be more accurate, because I would say he did about 90 minutes worth of work while he was on scene, and he couldn't have started until we were done with the walkthrough video. So he had to have been standing by. If he got there at 9:16, he had to have been standing by waiting for us to be done before he could start.
Okay.
And that'd have to be after Mr. Randolph signed the consent to search.
Nothing for me.
Read the rest.
Detective O'Kelly, did you say that after the walkthrough is when Mr. Randolph signed the consent to search card?
Yes, I believe that's when we had it done. I was explaining to him that we needed to gather this other information, and the walkthrough, the consent to search card was completed, and he signed it.
Okay, so he agreed to do that after participating in the walkthrough?
Yes.
And Mr. Tomchek asked you about how Mr. Randolph arrived and that his brother was driving the car. Do you recall that?
Yes.
What was the first thing you had him do in the walkthrough?
He did the introduction to why we were there. I believe he was asked to say his name, his address, date of birth, whatever. Detective Mogg is the one that's asking him those things. He responds to it, so that's the introduction. And then the first thing that we asked him to physically do was to show how he was able to pull the Hyundai Tucson into the garage with the Pontiac G6 there.
And he was the driver then, presumably, right?
Yes, he was.
So you took him out to the front of the house and had him show how he drove and approached the house with him driving and describing how he dropped Sharon Randolph off and that sort of thing, correct?
Yes, although he perceived that the Pontiac was in a different place. It was closer to the west side of the garage where the Hyundai Tucson goes. So he wasn't able to pull in and actually get out of the vehicle. We backed it out. It was very, very tight for him to do that.
But he was able to drive a car
Yes,
and he was able to park it.
correct.
And he didn't do anything that suggested to you that it would be dangerous for him to drive the car?
No.
Nothing like swerving around or not trying the pedals or going too fast or anything like that?
Not at all.
He was able to drive it and drive it normally?
Correct.
And he, in the video, it shows him pulling in and being able to park the car in the narrow garage.
Yes,
And so he was able to do that too.
yes, he was.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Any recalls?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor.
If you have any further witnesses.
Not on this motion.
If you have any witnesses you wish to call in regards to this motion.
Thank you so much. I'm feeling a lot better today. I am. And I hope that they
Based on that, will that be the conclusion?
start this afternoon,
of
but if
this-
not, one more day of rest won't kill
On
me.
this motion?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So do you guys want to argue everything at the end, or you want to argue one by one?
So, for the sake of the witnesses' time, it would be our request to do all the testimony and then argue. I don't know how defense
That's
counsel
fine with
feels.
us.
Okay, I'm good either way, I just wanted to leave that up to you guys. Okay, so then let's move on to, so we did that one. So you have
I have-
Rob Wilson, you need to check. Can
He
you
should
call
be
the
on.
blue jean and see if he's there? It appears we might be, have that working.
Okay, so yes, he would be next.
Yeah, I don't want to speak too soon because then it won't be working. Yes. And you guys sent him the link that I sent to you last week.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you send it or Anderson? Okay.
There's no one here.
I don't think it's COVID. I just get sick a little bit easier because I don't have much of an immune system anymore. Okay, so they just did all of the arguing for the walkthrough.
And we were having some difficulty, so I don't know if you all come in the beginning and no one was there, so they all gone.
The video walkthrough.
Contact him.
Okay.
The department before we started using blue jeans, so I didn't know if he was logged in with someone else's name.
I like this judge.
So we're gonna have Mr. Gunner step out and try to.
Ooh, I hate that white noise. Oh, actually, let me pull that up. Because I know that I know that there was a hearing set, but I said a hearing and my phone thought I said, "Hey Siri."
Okay.
So, Your Honor, I can recall Detective O'Kelly for the issue of the laptop.
Okay.
Mr. Hander is trying to make contact with Detective Wilson.
Okay.
So we're kind of doing two.
Mr. Evans walked in the door, but he appears to still be on his phone.
Okay.
So, see what he knows.
He's retrieving his computer right now, my phone.
Okay.
Oh, he's logging up right
Okay.
now. So never mind.
Okay, so they just argued over the the video walkthrough, which is a huge piece of evidence in this trial.
Wilson and O'Kelly will both be witnesses on this, the same motion on the attorney.
Yeah,
now they're gonna talk
Detective
about-
O'Kelly will be really quick if we want to, let's just.
However, you like, well, the problem is if we
Laptop.
start him,
Oh,
we would have to completely log out
Okay.
blue jeans
Never
for
mind.
exclusionary rule, so we should just start.
yeah, never mind.
Detective Wilson, would you be so kind as to raise your right hand so the clerk can swear you in?
You do
solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Will you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, W-I-L-S-O-N.
Thank you.
Thank you. Detective Wilson, are you retired from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department?
Yes.
What year did you retire, sir?
2018.
Do you recall in 2008 being one of the detectives that was assigned to investigate murders with the defendant by the name of Thomas Randolph?
Yes.
Do you recall sometime pre the first trial being asked to pick up a laptop detective or a laptop computer?
Yes.
Who was it that asked that you pick up the computer? Who contacted you?
Deputy District Attorney Robert Gaskis asked me to do that. I picked it up from the detention center. They had it in their possession.
Okay, so when you got the call from Robert Gaskis and then you responded to the detention center to actually pick up the computer?
Yes.
Once you picked up the computer, did you open it or look at any of the contents?
No, I just impounded it.
Okay, and so you impounded it in the Metro evidence vault?
Yes.
After impounding it, did you ever open it, look at the contents, do anything to examine the computer?
No, once I impounded it, I never saw that computer again.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
Ross?
Can you hear me okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see me?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good.
Goatee
How's
looks
it going?
goatee looks good on you.
Thanks.
Not going to take too much of your time. Couple questions. At the time Mr. Daskus contacted you and asked you to come impound the computer, did he tell you why?
He just told me it was an order from Judge Miley.
Okay. You have an understanding that at some point in time, Judge Miley was the preceding judge over this case.
Yes.
And you were aware at the time you impounded that computer whose computer it was, correct?
Yes.
You were aware that Judge Miley had issued an order previously allowing Mr. Randolph to utilize that computer in order to assist counsel with trial preparation, right?
I don't recall being aware of that.
Okay. You knew it was Mr. Randolph's computer, right?
Yes.
At the time you impounded it, you had to put a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department event number on it, correct?
Yes.
And so you put the event number associated with this case, right?
Correct.
You knew it was associated with this case, right?
Yes.
When you retrieved the computer from the Clark County Detention Center, did you impound anything along with the computer?
I believe there was a hard drive and some cables.
What about some discs?
No.
Do you know what happened to the discs that were with the computer at the time it was taken from Mr. Randolph?
No.
Do you know who in the detention center looked at that computer prior to you impounding it?
I have no idea what happened with that computer prior to it being in my possession.
Okay. In your work as a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detective, you're familiar with the detention center, right?
Somewhat.
You've been there many times over the years, right?
Yes.
Do you remember who you spoke to at the detention center when you took receipt of the computer?
I have it on my report. I don't remember it offhand.
Okay. Do you remember where within the facility you went?
They have an evidence area that they keep, and I believe that's where I went to collect the computer and the other items.
Did someone physically hand it to you?
Yes,
From the time the computer was taken from Mr. Randolph until it was given to you for impound, do you know who else had access to the computer?
no,
Do you know who reported to Mr. Daskus that that computer needed to be impounded?
no,
Do you know the reason for taking Mr. Randolph's computer and impounding it?
no,
Did you communicate about the impounding of that computer with Detective Dino Kelly?
I don't recall, but I'm sure I probably did. He was the lead detective on the case.
Did you ever have any communication with Judge Miley or Judge Miley's court staff about the impound of that computer?
Not that I recall.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Detective.
Redirect this for me. Sir, Mr. Tomchak on cross-examination suggested that there were some discs associated with this computer. When you went to the jail, were there any discs there?
No,
Had there been any discs associated with the computer, would you have taken those as well and impounded them along with the cables and that hard drive?
I assume so, yes,
Okay, you took what was there from the jail
correct,
and that's what you impounded.
yes.
Thank you. Nothing else, Sharon.
Any recourse? There. Okay. Detective Wilson, thank you very much for your testimony here today. Sir, you are excused.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Your Honor, we would just call Detective O'Kelly to.
Okay, will you call Detective O'Kelly for this? Yeah, we can.
I forgot I can. Detective O'Kelly looks a lot better with a beard.
N. O'Kelly, O''Kelley.
And Detective O'Kelly, we've already heard earlier in this hearing your credentials and how long you worked for Metro. I want to focus specifically on the pretrial time, the time between Mr. Randolph's arrest and the first trial that occurred in this case. Are you aware during that time period of a laptop computer that was utilized by Mr. Randolph?
Yes,
And are you aware that at some point, Judge Miley ordered that that computer be impounded by Metro?
yes, I am.
Were you contacted by anyone to get that computer impounded?
My partner, Detective Rob Wilson, was contacted. I wasn't.
Okay. Did you have any conversations about why that computer needed to be impounded?
No,
To your knowledge or based on impound reports, does it appear to you that Detective Wilson was the person who got the computer from the jail and then impounded it?
yes, he was at the direction of Robert Daskus, according to the wishes of Judge Miley.
Okay. Do you have any further knowledge as to why the computer needed to be impounded?
No,
Did you ever look in the computer or examine it prior to the impound?
No.
Did you ever look or pull that computer out of evidence and look at it after the impound?
I did pull it out of evidence last year, but no, it remained in the box.
Was it pulled out of evidence so a defense expert could access and look at the computer?
Yes, it was.
So that was at the request of Mr. Randolph and his counsel?
Correct.
Have you ever looked at the contents of that computer?
I've actually never seen the computer. I brought it out of evidence and maintained contact with their expert who was having some health issues. So there was a delay in getting the laptop or the expert to the laptop. So on that particular day where he was able to make it, Detective Ramos was actually the one that broke the seals, allowed the expert to image the hard drive and external hard drive. It went back in the box. It was sealed back up and taken back to evidence. And it remained there until, I want to say June 26th, around that time, when you requested that I get it out of evidence because it was being returned to Mr. Randolph.
Okay, and so if I'm understanding you, at one point you actually pulled it out of evidence for the defense expert, but the expert couldn't be there for an examination because of health issues?
I want to say it took like at least 10 days for him to finally get there because of his health issues. I spoke to him on the phone a couple times. It's either an Aussie or a Kiwi. I can't remember which one. He had a pretty strong accent. But when he was able to get there, it was Detective Ramos that signed the chain of custody, opened the box, allowed him to image it while he stood by. It went back in the box and then was returned to evidence until I got it out this June.
Okay, so you get it out of evidence, some days pass, Detective Ramos breaks the seals and the defense expert has access, then it gets re-impounded up until the time period that I asked you to get it out of evidence this year.
That's accurate.
Okay. Any time at all, did you ever look at the internal contents of the computer?
No, I've never seen it.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Liar.
I'm cooperating.
Well, you better. We'll arrest you as a
There you go.
material witness. Real quickly about this computer. You're aware that at some point this case winds up in the courtroom of presiding District Court Judge Stephanie Miley.
Correct.
Okay. You're also aware that in preparation for that case proceeding to trial in front of Judge Miley, Mr. Randolph was allowed to have a computer within the detention center. Yes?
Correct.
And the purpose of him having that computer was to help assist his counsel in preparation for trial.
I don't know why he was given it, but I'm sure that that's the reason why.
Okay. Makes sense, right?
It makes sense. And I don't know what access he had with it. I don't know if it was taken in and out or if he had it in his cell. I have no idea.
You do know that it was pursuant to an order that Judge Miley allowed him to have that computer with whatever parameters she imposed on it, right?
I would assume that's accurate. I haven't seen the order. I did see the order to have the computer examined by your expert.
Okay. When you say my expert,
Well,
you agree, wasn't,
defense expert.
yeah, I wasn't defense counsel.
You
at
weren't
the time,
there.
and neither was Mr. Warren, correct?
No.
It was-
Well, I think Mr. Worm was there. Yes. He was already on the case then.
okay. I was not.
You were not.
Okay. When the computer was impounded, it was in the year 2014, correct?
On tax day, April 15th. I remember. Yeah.
Okay. Did you pay your taxes?
I did, but not then.
Okay. Just taking
I
advantage of you.
did, I did before.
All right. So when the computer is impounded, it is at the direction of the court, right?
Yes.
Your understanding of how that happens procedurally is the court notifies Mr. Daskus that the computer is going to be impounded, right?
Correct.
So that he can facilitate having law enforcement impound the computer, right?
Correct.
And then that call is made to Detective Wilson, right?
Yes.
And he ultimately impounds it on, as you put it, tax day of 2014.
That's correct.
And it stays in evidence that whole time, right?
Yes.
In impound.
Yes.
Nobody has access to it.
Well, it's in an impound, but nobody had access to it.
Okay.
Nobody accessed it.
And nobody accessed it, you'd agree, the chain of custody record indicates that no one accesses it between February 14th of 2014 until February of 2022.
I don't know where the February 14 of 14 comes up.
April 14th.
April. Yeah. April 15th.
I might have said February, but I meant April.
Yeah. You went
I paid
tax
my
day to
taxes.
Valentine's Day, which is, I applaud your effort, but that's, yeah.
Between April 15th of 14 until February of 2022. What?
April 14th to 14.
April 15th to 14.
I thought he said April 14th.
Tax day, 15th.
No,
Valentine's
he said
Day's the 14th.
You said tax day, but I thought it was.
And then he switched to Valentine's Day.
Don't be forgetting Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Okay, April 15th of 2014.
So
Until-
between those two times, no, nobody accessed it. No, it didn't come out of impound.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask you about. What caused the court to take Mr. Randolph's computer?
I do not know.
Okay. Do you know of any conversations between the court and Mr. Daskus on that issue?
I don't know of those conversations. I'm sure they took place if Mr. Daskus related to my partner to have it impounded.
Okay. Do you know of any communications between Mr. Daskus and your partner, Rob Wilson, regarding the impound?
I don't know them personally, but I know based on the property report that was where it came from. It came from Robert Daskus to my partner, Rob Wilson. He retrieved it from a DST specialist at the jail, and then he impounded it. And it was at the wishes of Judge Miley,
Okay.
but I don't know why.
Okay. That's my question. Presumably something happened that caused Judge Miley to take back the computer, right?
I would expect, yes.
Okay. And you just can't tell us what it was.
I don't know what it was.
And you can't tell us who looked at that computer between the time it was given to Mr. Randolph until it was impounded on tax day of 2014.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the procedures are with CCDC, if he's allowed to have the access to the computer, if they somehow then also have access to make sure that he's utilizing it properly. They may have those procedures. I don't know. So I don't know specifically of anybody that was granted access to it based on procedure or not. But I know we in homicide did not access his computer.
Okay. And so the record's clear. There were no communications, according to your testimony, between the district attorney's office and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department about the content of the computer.
That's correct.
President.
I have no redirect. Okay, thank you for your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Everyone here today. Any other witnesses regarding this issue? No. Okay. Do we have, what other motions don't require witnesses? I don't.
They do not.
Okay. So you guys want to go forward? Let's go forward and argue these two.
Sure.
And then we'll break for lunch, and then we'll come back and do the rest.
Okay.
Okay. So in regard, let's back up, go back to the motion, eliminate and suppress the video walkthrough. I have read the motion, I've read the state's opposition, I've also had an opportunity to review the video that was provided, and now we have heard testimony, since this is the defense's motion. Defense, your argument?
No, I think to a large extent, the pleadings encompass the arguments that we have. It is very clear, I know Your Honor was provided a copy by my office of the walkthrough, and I think Mr. O'Kelly mentioned it today, and I think Detective Vaughn did as well. At the inception of that video, you can clearly see indicia of impairment on the face and the body of Mr. Randolph. His words are slurred, his eyes are droopy. Detectives testified today under oath that they took no precautions in order to ask him questions about whether he was impaired. Knowing that it was going to be recorded and knowing they were going to use the content of that walkthrough against him. Mr. O'Kelly testified that he developed a gut feeling as it related to the evidence. Obviously, our position about the case is clear, but as it relates to this particular piece of evidence, you can't take an individual who you know has prescription medication, who you know that prescription medication is mind-altering, who shows up to the walkthrough very clearly under the influence of those prescription medications, and then have him try to recreate a dynamic scene of a tragic nature and then later use it against him. It's fundamentally unfair. The jury shouldn't be allowed to see it. The detectives can testify about the content of their investigation without it, and we ask it to be suppressed.
State, your response.
Your Honor, as the state noted in its opposition, there is no police conduct related to his mental state, so there would have to be coercive police conduct in order for the walkthrough, even if he had exhibited signs of being under the influence, for it to be suppressed. Coercive police activity is a necessary predicate to finding that a confession is not voluntary within the meaning of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. That's Colorado v. Connolly, 479 U.S. 157. And the state cited other cases that go on to explain that as well. The state would also note, and the court has certainly had access to the recording to make its own finding, there's simply no indication that he's impaired. He is able to answer questions, he's able to move around, he gets down on the ground to explain things, he stands up. All of his questions are normal questions when he's interacting with the detectives. When they're talking to him, he's tracking the information and he's relaying appropriate answers that are consistent with someone who is oriented and lucid throughout the hour of the approximate time of the walkthrough itself. And then even if the court was looking for further indicia of the voluntariness of that statement, we've now heard testimony today that after that walkthrough took place, Mr. Randolph signed a consent to search clause, which further suggests cooperation with detectives. And then even after that, he shows up for an additional interview sometime later. There's simply no legal basis upon which to suppress the walkthrough.
Any reply to that, Mr. Tomczyk?
No, Your Honor, most of it.
All right, well, I did have an opportunity to view the video as well as hear testimony today. This court does not find that there was any police conduct, let alone coercive conduct in regards to this video walkthrough. When the video walkthrough begins, there's a statement by Mr. Randolph that he is cooperating, but the follow-up to that statement is he's going to go through with this, and he does go through with this. And the court was actually noticed as I was watching the video that a lot of what he is saying is mirroring and or tracking a lot of what was said in the statements that we discussed last week. So based upon that, the court does find that the statement was voluntary and the statement was knowingly given, as well as the detective testified that did not see any indication that he was unable to cooperate. So for those reasons, the motion to suppress is going to be denied. The defense motion to dismiss the charges for a violation of the attorney-client privilege. I have read the motion, I've read the state's opposition, I've also read the reply, and we have heard testimony. And I know the defense's argument will be a little different based on the additional evidence we were able to uncover since the motions were filed. But anything else you want to add?
I believe the parties are both prepared to submit on the pleadings and the record.
That's correct, Your Honor.
That motion is going to be denied as this court does not find that there's been any showing that anyone has accessed that laptop from the time it left Mr. Randolph's possession until it was booked into evidence on tax day of 2014, and then it was taken back out of evidence per the request of the defense counsel so that their expert could have an opportunity to view it, which I believe was February 17th, 2022. So based on that, that motion is denied. Okay, so the defense has a motion to strike the state's notice of expert witnesses that coincides with the motion that the defense filed in regards to Detective Mogg and Detective O'Kelly's testimony. I believe, as I previously stated to you, that some of the information that will be elicited through the arguments of both those motions will kind of overlap, but I will take argument on both of those at the same time, with the understanding we'll do that this afternoon, and then we will start with the Retrial tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Your Honor.
With the understanding that the witness is not present, we are going forward without him.
Understood. Oh, we can, if whatever the court schedule, obviously we'll follow that, but I think the parties are prepared to argue the expert one now.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so let's go forward.
And also the I pulled up the updates and they said that they did not start at 9 doing jury 9 their time doing jury selection this morning. They're not starting until 10:30 to do jury selection. So the chance of them doing opening statements today are pretty much zero. We can still hope for tomorrow, but it might be Friday.
With the defense's motion to strike the improper notice of expert witnesses, I have read the motion, I have read the opposition, and Mr. Tomczyk did provide a courtesy copy of the reply that was filed yesterday, but I did have an opportunity to review that.
Your Honor, may I be heard on this?
Yes.
Your Honor, I don't really understand why a detective can't do what we've been doing for 30 years in these courts and longer, and that is get up and testify as a detective. It was sort of shocking to read Detective O'Kelly's testimony during the last trial when he theorized that Sharon, the victim in this case, I don't know if you've ever seen the injury, it's a terrible injury to the back of her head, that for some reason he claims that she's on all fours and that maybe she hadn't died right away and she was on all fours. I don't see how he can possibly come up with that type of information. He's not qualified to do it. He at one point says there was a coup de grace shot. That caused Judge Miley serious concern. She sort of chastised the state, saying she found that highly prejudicial. He said that in his opinion, based upon another case he saw, this was an execution. Mr. Miller was executed. He described how Mr. Randolph had said a fire extinguisher had fallen during this and made a loud sound. He then said, well, he conducted experiments and Mr. O'Kelly bumped into the refrigerator a couple times and that couldn't happen. It couldn't happen. He also said at one point that he talked really low to Mr. Randolph to see if he really was hard of hearing. He wasn't. He fooled him on that and he could tell that Mr. Randolph wasn't. He also did some things to determine whether he was a liar, and he determined he was a liar. These are things he told the jury, some of which weren't objected to. He's not an expert in blood spatter. He's not an expert in ballistics because he describes how, when Mr. Randolph describes where he's standing, that the ballistics couldn't have come out the way he said. He also talks about the injuries to Mr. Miller. And based on the injuries to Mr. Miller, it couldn't have happened at all, so the way Mr. Randolph said. I don't think that's permitted at all. He is just going to ultimate conclusions. Whatever Mr. Randolph said, I've looked at the evidence, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's a lie. It's not true. I recognize that the court that I would have to make objections, or Mr. Tomczyk, when the witnesses are testifying. And I realize that the court will not preclude the witness from giving relevant testimony. But I am very concerned that the state is going to try to qualify him as an expert, which the Ninth Circuit has specifically condemned, saying that it is very confusing to a jury to have somebody testifying to what a lay person, or in that case, in the Ninth Circuit case, it was a case agent testifying as case agent, and then sort of also dual role of I'm an expert and I know these matters. And in fact, Detective Mogg at one point in his testimony talked about how all this jewelry just appeared to be costume. Again, he's not qualified for that, and we can cross-examine him over that. But it's a little concerning that Detective Mogg also testified in a prior murder that was considered by the Supreme Court about how an individual was laying down at the time. What we're really just trying to do is just make sure that the detectives in this case testify the way they do in every other case in our jurisdiction. They testify as detectives. They can come in and testify like they did today, facts, knowledge. But I don't think it's fair to have them say that they talked to Mr. Randolph, they determined he's lying. It cannot occur this way. So, yes, there was one other that I have missed, and that is Mr. Randolph had been away in Utah before the day of this incident, and he was going away after. Detective O'Kelly said burglars would come on that day. That wouldn't be the day the burglar would come. So how Detective O'Kelly knows what day a burglary is going to happen and what's in Mr. Miller's mind, we can easily argue. In other words, Judge, it's pretty easy for us to argue on that day. Mr. Miller knew that Mr. Randolph and his wife were away. He also house sits, or according to the Millers, he was involved in potentially house sitting. So this was a perfect time for him to commit a burglary. I understand the state can argue that's not when Mr. Miller would have committed a burglary. They can argue that to a jury, but to have a detective making these type of sweeping conclusions, and I can imagine that a jury would think, well, he's a detective, he would know when somebody's going to commit a burglary. No, he wouldn't. And so a lot of his testimony is just really out of bounds, and we don't want to do this while Detective O'Kelly's on the stand in front of the jury, objecting constantly. But we would ask the court to strike the expert notice. He can still testify. Detective Mogg can still testify. We're not asking that they be precluded, and it's simply just that they do it under the bounds that this court does in every murder trial that the court hears. And so I would ask that they be...
Hold on. She's dreaming. Look at Lucy and look at her little paws. She's dreaming.
They be stricken, Detective O'Kelly, as an expert, and that excited summaries and sort of explaining how coup de grace shots and executions and how Mr. Randolph is lying should be, very regulated. We'll object if it comes out, but we wanted to notify the court that we found that to be inadmissible and incorrect.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, we have an intern under Rule 49.3, Tyler Christiansen is going to do the argument for the state, if that's okay.
Okay.
Good morning, Your Honor. So to the extent the defendant's motion takes issue with page 164 of Detective O'Kelly's testimony at the first trial as it relates to Sharon Randolph, the possibility that she may or may not have been on her hands and knees at some point, the state has no intention of eliciting that testimony from the detective this time around. So that particular issue shouldn't be relevant going forward. So as it relates to the Ninth Circuit decision that the defendant cites relating to dual role testimony, a detective testifying both as an expert and to facts. Ancrum, the Ninth Circuit decision, does not categorically prohibit dual role testimony. Dual role testimony takes place all the time. And in fact, in that decision, the Ninth Circuit held that a simple jury instruction indicating to the jury, hey jury, this is what expert testimony is. This is the expert testimony that the state or the defense intends on eliciting from this witness. And hey jury, here's what the facts are. Here's what the facts that we intend on, or that the state or the defendant intends on eliciting from this particular witness, was fine. The court held that that simple instruction and the prosecutor couching their language in, as the defense counsel said, case agent, in your expert opinion, fill in the question there. Those two things were sufficient to cure any concerns with jury confusion or unmerited credibility, and should not prohibit the detectives from testifying both as factual lay testimony, providing factual lay testimony, and also providing expert testimony. And as it relates to the decision that the defense counsel mentions, which is Pete v. State, the 2017 unpublished decision from the Nevada Supreme Court, the Nevada Supreme Court specifically reprimanded the state for failing to notify Detective Mogg as an expert witness when the state intended on eliciting from Detective Mogg inconsistency analysis that no lay person could have done. The state, the court, held that that relied on expert knowledge that as a detective he had and required notice as an expert. He was, in that case, comparing blood spatter evidence to his understanding of self-defense and the defendant's statements. And those two things were inconsistent. And that inconsistency analysis was not, in that case, needed to be notified as expert. In this case, that actual issue has come up before in the first trial. During the bench conference on page 148 of Detective O'Kelly's testimony, Judge Miley said, Detective O'Kelly said that Mr. Randolph was lying. There was an objection at the bench conference. Judge Miley said he can't testify that he was lying. He can say it's inconsistent with what Randolph told him. As well as the DePepe case, which was cited in the defendant's own motion, the quotation from that case, which is a Seventh Circuit case from 1998, says that the engineer, the expert in that case, might testify as an expert, as the engineer, that the defendant's explanation for the decision was not sound, parentheses, from which the jury might infer that money was the real reason. The state has no intention of eliciting from the detective, hey detective, was Mr. Randolph lying? There's no intention of the state to do that. The state does intend on saying, based off of your expert understanding of ballistics, blood spatter, et cetera, investigations, homicide investigations generally procure over 25-year careers, were the defendant's statements inconsistent with blood spatter, ballistics, the placement of Sharon Randolph's body, and any other understanding of forensics. So that inconsistency analysis has been permitted in court before. It was specifically the court reprimanded the state and Pete for not noticing them as expert. So that particular part of the testimony should be admitted. As far as Mr. Miller, the testimony about Mr. Miller understanding that the Randolphs were going to be out of town around the date of the homicide and why that particular, why Mr. Miller may or may not have made that decision. The state, once again, has no intention of eliciting from Mr. Miller, from the detectives, what was Mr. Miller thinking? Why do you think Mr. Miller did this? What the state does intend on asking, because the investigation, the thoroughness and the direction of the investigation will be at issue in this case, the state intends on eliciting from the detective, what about this information you discovered made you alter the course of your investigation and focus in on Mr. Randolph. Why did this strike you as odd as an expert in homicide investigations for 25 years? Why did that make you suspect something was off and therefore direct the course of your investigation? It's not going to the state of mind, intent, or motive of Mr. Miller. It's not even going to the truthfulness of Mr. Randolph. It's going to what did the detectives think, understand, and why did that change the course of the investigation after they learned about this piece of evidence.
But to get to what the detectives are understood, are you guys going to be basically insinuating that it's the statements of Mr. Miller's that got them to this point? Or Mr. Miller's understanding that the Randolphs weren't at home?
So, Your Honor, there are, actually in Mr. Randolph's statements himself, there's testimony from witnesses as well as Mr. Randolph that Mr. Miller was aware that they were going out of town, they were gonna come back and, kind of be here for 2 days and leave again.
Okay.
The state certainly plans to elicit testimony that Mr. Miller would have been aware that there would have been a window of time when they were home, but on either side of that, Mr. Miller was aware that they would be out of town.
Okay.
We certainly plan on asking the detectives, and pretty much any witness who ever hears about this case finds it kind of odd that Mr. Miller would choose that time, the time they were home, to do a burglary or stage a robbery or burglary or whatever. We plan to ask those questions of detectives, like, did you find that odd? Did that seem strange? Wouldn't a more advantageous time to do a burglary be when the people aren't home? Or when they're going to be out of town? Certainly with 25 years, probably combined like over 50 years of investigative experience between Detective Mogg and Detective O'Kelly, they could say that that does not seem like an optimal time to do a burglary when you have ample opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second because I'm about to do a poll while they're talking. Their updates now are saying that they don't think that this is going to start until Friday. So I'm going to give a poll. We're going to give a couple options. She's so stinking cute. We're going to give a couple options. There's in my old neighborhood, actually, right down the street, about 10 minutes from where I grew up, is a place. It's Stone Mountain Park. It's literally a big rock mountain. There is a trial going on that started yesterday. It's the best friend murder retrial. It was they tried it once before and it ended in a hung jury. So they're retrying it now, and it started yesterday with them saying now they don't think that this one is supposed to start until Friday. We can watch some of that. We can watch it sped up and skip breaks and stuff like that. We can do that today and tomorrow. So I'm going to give you that option, or and also that one's not supposed to last long either. So we can watch that today, tomorrow, and then start our trial Friday. We also, because this trial isn't going to be starting until later in the day, we can even like clip the highlights and watch them in the beginning before we start this trial on the other days. Because like I said, the best friend murder retrial is supposed to end. It's only supposed to last like a week. It's not supposed to be long at all. And they're moving through everything pretty fast. So I'm going to let y'all vote. But I wanted to tell you what the vote was for before we...
On either side of the time period when the Randolphs are home to do a burglary. So we do plan on asking the detectives that. Certainly on cross-examination, Mr. Tomchak or Mr. Orm could say, people make bad decisions. This wouldn't, it's not like a definitive piece of evidence, but certainly the state will be pointing out that the scenario that Mr. Miller decided to burglarize the Randolphs' home at precisely the night he knew they'd be home is a little bit hard to believe.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wagner. was that-
Oh, yes, I'm sorry,
No,
sorry.
Read that.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Arnold.
Your Honor, Mr. Miller knew that Mr. Randolph and his wife were going out to celebrate Mother's Day, and that they were going to be gone for approximately 4 hours, movie and dinner. And this is the time he wants to do it. I understand that Ms. Weckerly, Mr. Hamner can go to the jury and say, this makes no sense, it makes no sense. But to have a detective who, by the way, expert in homicide, at the time of this crime, I believe Mr. O'Kelly had 2 years of experience, and we're going to let him testify like he knows everything about, he's an expert in homicide. He's the investigator, he has a vested interest in making sure that there's a conviction because he's made the arrest, he believes in that arrest. But to let him talk about blood spatter, and I heard the prosecutor say, yeah, he's an expert in blood spatter. No, he's not. And he's not an expert in ballistics. They have experts in those fields that they can call. They have, I believe Mr. McPhail has knowledge of blood spatter. They have ballistics experts that can come in and testify. And so I understand that detectives have a right to testify to facts. And they could say things like, the defendant said he was at McDonald's at this time. We got the video. Detective, were you able to find him on the video? I cannot see him. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. That's the observations. But to then make the determination for a jury, he is not on the video, he is lying, and he is lying for this reason. That is the inappropriate part of this. And so I don't understand why he's going to be qualified, these two as experts. They're not experts in homicide. I think Mr. Mogg was only in homicide for about 5 years prior to this. And you've had detectives with a lot more experience in homicides testify before you. They get to testify to what they know and what detectives testify to. Additionally, I would ask the court, have you seen detectives qualified as experts? I mean, can we do this in robbery? Could we do this in drugs? Could we start doing this all the time? In my opinion, this is what the defendant was doing, and I'm an expert in drug trafficking, and this defendant is a drug trafficker. I think it's highly inappropriate. I think that he should just be allowed to testify traditionally as a detective does. The expert notice should be stricken, and the court should be aware that Mr. O'Kelly, by the way, on some of this media, before he came in and testified last time, he made comments to the media. I'm cleaning. I'm going last. I'm coming in to clean up. Boy, he did. He cleaned up. And so I just want to put the court on notice of that. I think he wants to summarize everything and then conclude that Mr. Randolph is wrong. Your Honor, I would ask that the expert notice be stricken. He can testify, but it should be within the bounds of the Constitution. And with that, I submit it.
All right. Well, I mean, here's the situation. I understand that in the unpublished Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court did chastise the statement on noticing him as an expert. However, these detectives do have additional information that a lay witness would not have. The person who's walking down the street is not going to have had this experience, not going to have that. So I understand that that's the reason for the expert notice. However, they're not going to be allowed to get up here and do what was done at the last trial and basically testify to everything under the sun because I'm the detective and that's what I said. That's not how this works. They're not going to give any conclusions about whether or not he's lying because veracity is a question to be determined by the jury. The whole argument that was made about, well, this is not an opportune time for Mr. Miller. That's a question for the jury. Mr. Orm is absolutely correct. You and Mr. Hamler can get up here and argue till the cows come home. Look at this. Would anybody break into somebody's house when they know that they're at home? You guys can argue that to this jury, absolutely, but would be improper for Detective Mogg or Detective O'Kelly to get up here and say Mr. Miller would have never broken into, or Mr. Miller had to be under the assumption would have been in the steps so they weren't home in order to break this up. They can get up here and you could ask them, have you ever investigated a burglary where somebody broke into somebody's house when they were home? You could ask them that because in their training and experience, they absolutely have the ability to answer that. They will be allowed to answer questions that are within their training and experience, and I'm going to let them remain noticed as experts because they do possess information that a lay witness would not have, but they are not going to be able to get up here and give all of these conclusions in regards to what had to be going through Mr. Miller's mind. As far as the ballistics and the blood spatter, I don't know what their experience is in that. So you would have to lay a proper foundation before you get to that. And I don't know what Detective Baum did in his 25 years. I don't know what Detective O'Kelly did in regards to how they know about that. Because I do know that there are ballistics experts that are certified with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department that have been used in 99% of the cases in this jurisdiction. So I don't know how we're making the jump that now we're gonna let the detectives do it and we don't need the person for firearms. And Krylo is notified, is noticed as the very next expert on the expert notice. So I don't know what it is that he knows about ballistics, but you can lay the foundation at that time. And then I will make a decision at that time as to whether they can then be asked that additional question about ballistics and blood spatter, because I don't know how they know that.
Okay, and we'll lay that foundation when we qualify them in either the court finds them qualified or not, you know, as.
Ms. Beckley, you know the law doesn't require that.
Well, or you can make a, I guess.
What I'm saying is you can lay the foundation, Detective Mark, in all of the cases that you've investigated. How many times have you dealt with blood spatter?
Right.
What has been your experience in dealing, you know, whatever foundational
Right.
questions you want to ask. And then at that point, you can make the objection and then you can approach and say, Judge, no, they haven't established anything that says he's an expert in blood spatter. And then I will make the decision at that time. If you can ask the next question regarding the inconsistencies that he may have observed or he says he observed in this case.
Right, and I mean, certainly, as they testify here today with over 50 years' experience, they can look at the crime scene photos and know what they saw then, and they are looking at them with the range of experience that they have today. Not the experience they had in 2008. Since 2000, it's the totality of their experience and interpretation of a crime scene.
Well, it is if they're testifying today, but I think what Mr. Orm is getting at is when O'Kelly makes the determination, I believe that this is inconsistent and I believe these things, that he made that determination in 2008 that was based on his expertise in 2008 and not the expertise that he has here
But
today.
his testimony would either be different or it would be the same, right? I mean, he in 2008, he thought this, he investigated 500 other homicides in the ensuing years before he retired. And now he's testifying as he sees the evidence today. I mean, whether or not I get the court's ruling on, look, if we lay the proper foundation for them being experts, you'll either allow or disallow a question. I do have one question I just want to ask the court for clarification on the timing of the burglary thing. I would assume we're allowed to ask both of these detectives, did it strike you as odd or influence the investigation when the explanation offered was, you know, Mr. Miller knew they would be out of town, but somehow this burglary occurred at the time when they would be home? Because that is a factor that they heard from Mr. Randolph that struck them as odd, that kind of brings them into the area of suspicion. I mean, that is a strange
Yeah, and that furthers their investigation, but they're not gonna be able to get up here and say, there is no way that somebody is gonna
Correct.
break into somebody's house knowing that they're home.
Understood.
But they're not gonna be able to get up there and say that because they don't know.
Yeah, I understand that.
And maybe I can focus the issue a little bit more, because it's not a matter, we have no objection to Cliff Mogg or Dino Kelly getting on the witness stand and saying, look, I'm an experienced homicide detective and I have all this training and experience. I've done all these cases, and when I reviewed the evidence in this case, this is why that was important to me and this is what I believed about it. That's appropriate detective testimony. We're not objecting to that. What we're objecting to is the idea that, I mean, you read the expert notice? I mean, it's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever read as it's put on an expert notice. It doesn't read as an expert notice. I don't think it was written by either of these prosecutors, but it's like a summary of, these are all things they're going to testify to, and oh, by the way, they're experts. When we ask an expert an opinion question, it's, after doing all of these things, have you reached an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as to this? If they're noticed as experts on the issues raised in that expert notice, they can look at the jury and say, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as an expert in homicide investigations, what Mr. Randolph said is a lie. The burglary wouldn't have.
Mr. Tomczyk, there's no way we're gonna get to a point where Cliff Mogg or Dino Kelly can say, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, this is what's, because they don't know that. There's no way they have the, so there's no way that I'm allowing that question to be asked of them.
Yeah. I mean, burglars do burglaries at stupid times all the time. That's
Right.
why they get caught.
Well, that's complete fodder that all of you guys can absolutely get up here and argue to this jury. I mean, I'm pretty sure the state is never gonna end this case without saying, and why would anybody break into somebody's house knowing that they're home? And you guys are never gonna end this case without saying, he knew that they were going out to Mother's Day dinner and knew that they weren't gonna be home. That's completely arguments you guys can make, and as I previously stated when I started, it's those summary issues, which I'm pretty sure Ms. Wagner is shaking her head, and I know for a fact, these two were not the prosecutors who tried this last case. And I know that they have had an opportunity to review all of the testimony in this case, and those are the issues that they are not gonna be allowed to say. I mean, though, that was completely opinionated testimony that should have never been given, and it's not gonna be given here. You can ask them through their training and experience, because they have had a lot of experience, which is exactly what you said. But making that jump that Mr. Miller had to have believed that they wouldn't have been, they're not gonna be able to do any of that, and you can argue all that to a jury, as they are gonna be the person to make the determination as to what they believe happened in this case.
Sure. Understood.
I just get one. Okay, so if I'm just hearing the court correctly, so for example, hypothetically, you could ask a detective, when Mr. Randolph had indicated to you that Miller knew that they were going to be leaving the next day and were just going out to dinner for a couple hours, would we be free to ask, for the purposes of your investigation, was that a concern for you when you heard that information? Yes, it was. Why is that?
Nor would I ever object to that.
Right, because he can absolutely testify to that, because that's what took him to the next step of his investigation, I'm assuming. I don't know that. Yeah, he can testify to that. It's when he says, Mr. Randolph is lying, or Mr. Miller had to have known that they wouldn't have been at home, or whatever that statement was. They can't talk about any of that because that's improper.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, so 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yes, ma'am.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll be here.
See you at 9:05.
We're gonna have the veteran chat. Did you guys get Mr. Randolph's quote? Because I got an email, he didn't have quotes.
Yes.
They're at the gym?
Yes.
Our investigator had them on Friday. and
Okay, I got the email on Thursday.
Okay.
I was out of town, but I read it this morning, so he does have to try.
Andy got a beautiful haircut.
And he did get a very nice haircut, we were just wondering, Mr. Tomchek. All right,
Judge Jones,
yes?
when you're talking to the, still with this medication, I'm telling you.
There he goes.
Well, last time we was here, because of the difference of the time, it was in the afternoon, you can ask Mr. Oram, he woke me up about a dozen times. I need to be awake during a death penalty case, or any case,
Right.
but we can't get this doctor in at the same time. I've been telling him, file a kite, file a kite, file a kite. I need him to adjust the times on the medicine so that I'm asleep at night, not in court, but I can't get him to come out. I don't know why it is. They'll send a PA, they'll send another doctor, they'll send some provider, and they say, we can't do anything, Dr. Maple has to do it. He needs to do this, like soon, we start picking a jury tomorrow. I want to be awake during my trial.
Okay.
And all he needs to do is come and see me, and I'll explain to him, just change it to a certain time, and I'll happen to be in the unit. And then as soon as I'm in the unit, having lunch like the rest of you, changing my bandages, brushing my teeth so Chris doesn't pass out, being normal, because I'm sitting in a place that's got water on the floor and stains on the wall. And it's not good for me to be sitting on concrete hours and hours a day when I've got the compressed disc, which is causing the pain. And that's what you get the methadone for. We've talked about UMC saying methadone, the guys are crazy. You shouldn't be getting this. You must be a junkie. I'm not a junkie. I don't do drugs. So we need.
I just want to pause right there. When he says, "I'm not a junkie. I don't do drugs," that is only because he is locked up. Because remember, all of the testimony about how he did drugs, and not testimony, but all of the interviews and even his own stuff where he said that he did drugs and he sold drugs and all of that. But here we go with him trying to control everything.
I need you to get him to come and see me soon, like today, tomorrow, and then get this, if I'm there during taking a lunch like you guys do, where I'm not sitting on cold concrete, and I can change my bandages, I can do what I just told you. As soon as, and I talked to the nurse, Soon as I get there, the COs will call and say he's in the unit, they'll bring me my medicine.
Well, Ms. Redmond, I'm gonna make those requests, but as far as what they're giving you, I'm not a doctor.
No,
We talked about this. I can't tell them you have to give them this, but I'm gonna call the jail right now and make the
They're
request.
gonna give me what they give me, it's just give it to me when, I know when I fall asleep. I wanna be awake during my trial. I can sleep at night, I can sleep during the after, at 8 o'clock at night, I can sleep. At 6 o'clock, I don't wanna be sleeping at 2 o'clock, at 10 o'clock.
Okay, I will call the jail as soon as we're done here and address everything.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other matters we need to address outside?
Not on behalf of this.
Okay,
Thank you, Your Honor.
all right, I'll see you guys in the morning at 9.
So I can see these pictures.
I want to let it play. Because listen to him still going. He talks.
How you feeling, Tom?
How are you, man? I don't do that anymore because I got sores.
Yeah.
Is this all you?
Netflix is doing
Do you hear that? Netflix is doing
Oh, well.
a thing on him.
I'm gonna go have a bologna sandwich. Yeah. And some water.
He says, I'm going to go have a bologna sandwich and some water.
It's good to see you. You're welcome here. I'm sure we'll be talking at some point. Yeah. Okay, thank you. See ya. I can get out there.
He's something else. Okay, so yeah, Lucy is very zen right now. She is. See if you can see her a little bit better. Look at all of her little toys. She's so funny. Okay, so poll results. 83% want to watch Best Friend Murder Trial. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break so I can take this little lady outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a different stream. I'm actually working on it now. And then I'm just going to redirect y'all over there. That way I can have different people know what it is when they come in. Flip-flop count, I don't have any because after I gave her her treat, she went right back to sleep. So she's got her, this is the only flip-flop that we have, and she's snuggling it. It's like a little toy flip-flop that she has, and she's snuggling it. She's the cutest little baby. You're so cute. You're so cute. Your mama loves you. Sit here and talk to her all day. Alrighty, let's see. I am going to, since the widower is delayed a bit, we are going to watch on trial. Last one ended in hung. Okay, so the last one ended in a hung jury. So this is the retrial. Let me, and I just threw together a quick thing. What time is it now? It's 12:30 my time. So we're going to do 1 o'clock. So that gives us about 30 minutes. That gives me time to take her out, take some medicine. I will set this up to redirect so that y'all don't even have to do anything. It'll send you right on over. I've gotten good at this. I'm pretty, I think. I got it done pretty quick yesterday when I was trying to send y'all to RA. I think I've gotten pretty good at this. Look at me. And since it's going to be, since they're already like involved in it, it started yesterday, what we'll do is we'll just, to the things that we can listen to faster, like 1.25 or whatever, we will. And then, if it's too fast, then we can listen in regular time. But the thing is, we get to skip through breaks and stuff like that. So if they don't start this one until Friday, which is kind of what they're saying now, then this just gives us something to watch for today and tomorrow. And then this one's not supposed to be a long one. So we can, in the time since the widower trial is Pacific time, we can use our time in the morning before the widower trial and kind of update on it and, watch highlights from it and stuff like that. So, all right. So I'm going to end this stream and it will portal you directly over there. I'm going to take her out, her little lazy bum self, take her out. And I will see y'all on the other stream in about 30 minutes. So thank you for reporting to jury duty. I will see y'all after lunch.